This is episode 6 of Quarantine Chronicles. The reason I sound so down is because I finally had a really good intro that Jason just ruined it.
Sabotaged unintentionally.
When's the last time that we did a podcast together where we didn't have to re-record the intro?
I think it was back in the before times.
Is that what we're calling whenever we did these in person?
That's what we're calling 2018. Yeah, no, before we started doing these remotely. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So February, March. I guess March was the last one we did, like mid-March.
Yeah.
Well, damn. I'm your host, Kevin. To my virtual left, Jason, the fun ruiner.
Yep, that's me.
And then to my virtual right, we got Angel.
What's up?
What's up, Angel? You just built a brand new computer.
I did.
How's this new life?
It's crazy. I mean, I've had PCs before, so I'm not like a stranger to I'm going from a Mac to a PC. But it was both harder and easier than I expected. I will definitely say that. But the fact that I get to just tailor make it to exactly what I want it's just really, really great. Which I wanted to tailor towards animation and gaming, basically the two favorite things. And nothing against Apple or other computers, but just I guess if you do want to do something in particular, some people want to go more into level design or play certain types of games, it is nice that you actually have this option, which I used to have the mentality of I don't really want to think about that stuff. I just want to buy one unit and then just have it work, which Apple satisfies perfectly. But now that I started getting into the weeds of this, I really have come to appreciate this and anyone that actually built their PC. For one thing, first I had the mentality of oh wow, getting the parts isn't that bad. I mean, I obviously had Kevin and another friend Victor helping out tremendously. They guided me towards some sites to check out, and I read a couple articles on what you would need to have a good PC for gaming, and specifically animation. I kind of definitely prioritized animation. And I picked out the chipsets, I got the motherboard, the CPU, and then I put it on this website called PCPicker.com.
PC Part Picker.
PC Part Picker, yes. And it tells you if everything is compatible with each other, which is really, really convenient because, I'm sure it happens before someone doesn't use that. They might buy a motherboard that isn't compatible with their CPU or something like that, which I imagine being a pain, especially right now, because the last thing I wanted was to go and have to return something and then just wait that much longer for it to ship back or having to go in person. It's just glad everything worked out in that sense.
Yeah, getting something dead on arrival kind of sucks. I've had it happen before with some SSDs.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, at least SSD is a smaller component, so at least
true.
That. But, damn, and then, so picking out everything and I guess building it virtually was, I thought, easier than I expected. I thought it was going to be a lot tougher. Also, I already had prior animators pretty much telling me which would be good to get and which wouldn't be, so there's that. But then putting it together was kind of building big Legos, except without the help of Kevin, because for some reason a lot of my parts didn't come with instructions. Some of them had instructions on a disc, which I don't have anything that could run a disc, and some of them just straight up didn't. So Kevin was kind enough to grab I guess the blueprints of the motherboard, and it pretty much tells you exactly where everything goes. So I was kind of looking at his screen through my phone as he was guiding me to, all right, grab this tiny little cable and put this in this little spot over here. And these things, you're literally connecting tiny 1-pin cubes to needles. Sometimes 4 cube little sockets to 4 needles. It's kind of nuts how intricate it is, and I could definitely see why some people really take their time on this part, and why there's also a lot of room for error. Because after we put everything together, we had that magical moment where they powered it on for the first time, and we're all right, cool, it turned on, I see everything spinning, but then there was no image on the TV I was connected to at the time. And we turned it off, turned it on, took out, and we got a little light telling us that it had something to do with the graphics card or the video card. So, we unplugged that, plugged it back in, nothing. Plugged it to the other slot, nothing. and at that point I think it was close to midnight, and I was just like, oh, I'll just worry about this in the morning. But I just Googled it and I found a Reddit post. Pretty much a lot of people were encountering this issue, and I guess what I had to do was remove the graphics card, turn on the computer, let the computer run its own boot up software, and then pretty much check itself to the point where it realizes the graphics card is not there, and then give me that same error I was getting before. And then I have to turn it off, put the graphics card back in, and for some reason that fixed it, and I never had that issue again.
That's such a weird problem. I've never heard of that being the issue where you just have to use the on motherboard graphics and then use your graphics card to fix the issue.
Yeah, it was definitely scary because, you know, like at that moment it's like, oh god, is it really the graphics card? Do I have to return this? Is it the motherboard? Like, we had no way of knowing except for like you suggested the next day you bring I think it was a graphics card that you knew worked.
Yeah.
That way if it didn't work, then we would know it was the motherboard. But thankfully it worked and it turned on, and then I had to create like a little like flash drive where I could put Windows in so that I could boot it up. And I thought that was going to be... I thought like I was done, but little did I know that I was just like halfway through. Because now that you have the computer built up, you screwed everything back on, and let me tell you, I had to like unscrew and rescrew, I think, the power supply compartment a few times, so yeah, there's definitely a lot of work you have to redo.
Why was that?
Although it's not as... because I forgot... Remember we had to plug in an extra CPU cable?
Mm-hmm.
So I had to like unscrew everything and then take it back out and then put it back in.
Oh.
Like not that bad.
Oh, that's
but yeah, not that bad. But I've heard worse stories from other people where like it just wasn't turning on and they literally started over from scratch because they literally had no indication of what was not working. But once I got it all plugged in and everything, my other friend Victor, he walked me through getting all the drivers, which is nuts. Like, if I didn't know any better, I would have just been like if I didn't have these two guys, I would have just like turned it on, just been like, all right, cool, I'm ready to go. But nope, like I downloaded drivers for the motherboard, for the graphics card. Like, we went through so many settings. Like, we booted up in, like, I guess it was like into the motherboard software and not
the
Windows.
BIOS.
So,
the BIOS, yeah.
Yeah, the BIOS. So, and we tweaked so many things. We limited, like, when it's running this, the power, it's only getting this much voltage for like every single tiny little thing. Like, it was literally mind blowing just how like meticulously customizable every computer is. Like, you can literally control like just how much power everything is getting, when everything turns on, how much like resources are allocated to it. It's crazy, and that took probably as long, if not a little longer, than building the actual computer. But once all that was done, then I had to register my products, you know, to get that warranty. So then there was all that. And then when that was done, I finally got to install some games. Because, you know, like, the first thing I want to do is make sure is that I can actually run stuff.
I have a question for you.
And can you run stuff?
2 questions for you before you get to the software side. Question number 1, how many flashy, neon, colorful, RGB little things are on there? Like, how intense of a rainbow is it when you walk into your room now, or is it not at all? Because isn't that like a signature thing of gaming PCs, is all those colors everywhere?
So there were definitely a lot of RGB options. Mine's is, I barely picked anything that lights up. So I only have like the fan that lights up because that's just how it is, and the graphics card, the name lights up. So it's pretty tame. I mean, my mouse, I guess, lights up just because I did have a wireless mouse initially, like a Logitech Master. It was kind of ergonomic because I use that at work and it's great. But for whatever reason, and at first I thought it was because I had my computer is actually behind my desk. Like, it has plenty of space on both sides to breathe, but I can't see it at all. It's like, it's invisible for all intents and purposes. So there was also no reason to invest in getting a lot of lights.
No flashy keyboard, no flashy mouse, no.
Well, my keyboard is a mechanical keyboard that I ordered a couple months ago that I did get knowing that I was going to eventually get a PC. But nothing too crazy. But I prioritize price and power. So if I could cut anything, it would be that. So like my keyboard, it does have flashing lights and pulsates in different patterns, but it's only white. But my mouse, I guess because it is a, whatever the heck this is, a Corsair, I do have it pulsate from green to orange, like
Ninja Turtles.
all the time. Yeah, basically just Michelangelo.
Yep.
So I might like switch at some point. But as I was saying, I had a wireless mouse that was working perfectly when I was gaming and doing other things. But anytime I would use Maya, for whatever reason, the mouse just started like having a bunch of like frequency issues. So it just wouldn't move, or it would start like spazzing out all over the place. Only when using Maya, which, as you know, is like the top of the line animation software, the most important software that I'd be using. And that was kind of a bummer, and I even tried moving it closer, and it did seem to resolve the issue, but I didn't want to have to deal with the fact that I would have to have the PC so close to the mouse in order for it to just work, especially where I'm going to keep it. Because then that would require me to have a lot of cables extended to their max.
Right.
And so I ended up just going with a wired mouse that, now works perfectly fine. It has the same buttons and same interface. It's just not as comfy because it's not ergonomic, but, it's still a good mouse. I mean, it's comfortable enough as mice go. But, yeah, it's definitely intense. But, yeah, no lights. If you want to see crazy lights, dang, you should look at Kevin's. Like, he sent me a video of his.
Kevin, do you have crazy lights? Because I imagine you're all about that gamer PC aesthetic.
So interestingly enough, yeah. So I was trying to get a job at this one company. They're called NZXT. They have a PC building site in the city of Industry, and I was trying to get a job there. So my PC was decked out in nothing but lights. Everything that's NZXT that can light up is in my PC.
So it's just constantly Christmas in your room.
No, not anymore, because I realize that's a very, very, how could I say this? It's like, it's not worth anything. It's not like the RGB is going to speed up my computer by 5%.
The flame decals on a car, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's essentially what they are. Yeah, they're flame decals on a car. And so now I'm actually, like, I don't even look at my PC. It's on the side of my desk where that's like covered in monitors and stuff like that. So I don't even see the internals of it. So I just have all the lights off. It was almost like a waste of money because now instead of like looks, and obviously because I'm not trying to get a job at NZXT anymore, I am trying to find cases and parts that will actually make my PC a little cooler and a little quieter than what I have right now. So yeah, before I was very much like, oh yeah, I want all the lights, I want this and that, I want all my lights to switch between the cyberpunk colors and stuff like that. And like when I do, it looks really cool. Like when I have my lights synced to like a cyan neon blue and a deep purple, it looks really cool. But I don't even look at it anymore. So now I'm just trying to get rid of all these pieces. I was honestly thinking about like buying all the new stuff so I could have a quieter and cooler PC, like temperature wise cooler, and then selling everything else for like a bundle on OfferUp, where it's just like $100 here. You get all this stuff that cost me over $500. Just take it. Just to get rid of it.
It's just like the Amiibo again, where you're like, I spent all this money on these. Here, someone just take them, please.
Yeah, true.
But yeah, I don't. I'm gonna be honest. I never quite fully got or understood. Like, I know why people like the gamer aesthetic of like even that new chair that Logitech and whatchamacallit, Harman whatever made together. Like, I'm like, that looks very ergonomic, but I don't know why it has like DNA strand patterns on the back. Like, I don't get the gamer aesthetic. Like, I'm generally more minimalist. I think that's partly why I like, like the Apple look of things. But like, I think I like the Xbox Series X design more than I like the PS5 design, for example. Like, I think that's more minimalist and can just kind of be wherever. I've always been that way. So like, whenever I see the flashing lights, I'm like, they're showing off what they built. It's like an achievement. It has like a cool, like, look at this. But it's like, I wouldn't want, like, if my Mac keyboard every time I was typing had like a pulsating blue thing like in the top left corner of it, it would drive me mad. And I know you can like turn it off when you're using it, but I don't know. I just like the simpler. The one light I will make the exception for, being an Apple fanboy, two of them. One is the glowing light on the lid of a Mac, because you don't see it directly, back when they still did that. And the other is the Wii disc slot, that blue glow I always thought very cool, because again, it was very minimal. It was like one streak, while like I feel like a lot of the PCs are very, how many colors can I show at once and in what elaborate pattern where it looks like it's about to take flight and go into outer space or something. But I mean, that's just my personal opinion. But
I mean, well, I wouldn't. Yeah. Well, like you, like I wouldn't. I mean, I didn't do it myself. I do love seeing them. Like I don't know. I just think they look really cool.
Yeah, I
but,
think it's like.
I was telling my brother. I thought like Kevin's. They reminded me of kind of like a Chuck E. Cheese. Like there's like this game.
Okay, dude.
Where it's like a half sphere, and it has like a bunch of like tubes and lights all over it. Like it's like pulsating. Like it's like literally what it looks like.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Like I think honestly, like if they're like an art, if there's an exhibit in a museum of like crazy computers, or there's like a display at E3 or like at Comic-Con or whatever, like I would happily go look at those and be like, that's wild. But I could never in a million years picture it in my house, like ever. It's just too intense.
Yeah, and that's why I just turn off all the lights. Like they're so useless. Yeah, they can look, especially if you make them sync up to a certain app or something like that. They can look really cool. I know a lot of like Twitch streamers do like to have their PC within the camera, within the frame of their camera. But I mean, I don't. So
right.
It's just it's like when people put underglows on their car, like on the street racing scene, you know?
Yeah, or like those spinners on top of their rims that spin even when they're stationary back in like 2003, and just like
they're still moving.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. So that was question number one I had for Angel. I did have one other one. Angel, do you think you would have jumped as far into building PCs if you didn't get your feet wet with like your little sort of hobby of replacing people's iPhone and phone screens? Because I imagine like going from not doing hands-on things to hands-on things would be difficult. But was that like a good stepping stone for like anyone who's looking to do something similar? Would you say that like start with smaller electronics and bigger parts that are like one and done and then move into it? Or do you think it's like you dive in?
It helped with like the confidence of just like doing it myself or just like wanting to push for it sooner. But I think it was going to happen no matter what, just because I had that other necessity of wanting something more powerful that would last longer for animation, because the laptop is only going to last me so long to animate, and like because it's such a thin laptop, like it gets hot ridiculously fast, even like for recording and other things. So it's like perfect for like short spurts of it, but I wouldn't want to animate on my MacBook for like hours straight, which is perfect that I have something like this now. But yeah, but like replacing iPhone screens and that kind of stuff definitely made me feel like more like, oh yeah, like I'm down to do that. I'm down to mess with it. Even though like when it was getting intimidating, I was messing with like little, like I was saying, like little needle connections. Like it was intimidating, but the whole time I'm like, I've done harder. Like this is like, I guess that motivation did help. Otherwise, like I probably like if it wasn't for any of that, I probably would have waited until maybe post-COVID times, and until like Kevin or Victor would have been like available to actually come over and like build it with me. So that probably would have been the biggest difference, just me doing it myself versus waiting to have someone else help me, which definitely helped me with getting it done sooner. So
yeah,
but yeah, it's like it did.
Interesting.
Give me that confidence, but.
So you were going to talk software, but then I sort of butted in. So
yeah, but now that it's done, like one of the best things I have going for it right now is I cleaned out my Dropbox completely. That way, I have all the software or all the animations that I'm currently working on in that Dropbox. That way, I could just double click them on my PC, work on it at home, save it, go to work where I take my laptop, and during my breaks, animate over there on my laptop, then save it, and then come back here and continue working. It's perfect. And since I was already using Chrome for everything because Safari was having some issues on my specific model of MacBook Pro, which is a common issue with that model, and not to mention whatever comes after Mojave, since I've had Mojave now forever. Since I've been using Chrome, like now like everything is synced up super nicely. It's perfect. It's like I have a ecosystem between my PC, my MacBook, my iPad, and my iPhone. It's amazing. So that's been working great. But then, the games are also important. And like the first thing I did was boot up Death Stranding, because that came with that was a free offer for buying a graphics card from Nvidia, I guess, or Gigabyte, or whichever one it was. And yeah, first thing I did was just bump the settings all the way up, and damn, it's amazing. Like, I've never been able to do that before. I've always had to do the opposite, just like tone the settings down to like practically minimum to just off. So I remember like playing Portal with like the game pretty much barely working. Like, I'd be able to move around just fine, but like there were no shadows, there were no textures, and in some cases I couldn't even see through the portal itself because that was just too much for it to render, which makes it a game just really hard to see because you're supposed to see where you're going. But yeah, now that I could bump everything up, like, and the frame rate is just like, it's still a constant 60, which is crazy. Like, which just lets me transition to Death Stranding because that game is like super pretty. Like, I just love, like, the landscapes look amazing, and damn, just the fact I could run this is just kind of blowing my mind. And I'm sure it's like not even like the peak of it. I mean, this is a newer game too, so that was definitely like my test bed. Like, all right, can I run this? But yeah, I guess also, like, as I was just playing Death Stranding, it did also kind of reach a point where it's like, yep, this is definitely a very Kojima game. Like, I love that this game is cinematic. I mean, I love cinematic games, but I guess I don't think I've played a game in a long time where, like, I'm 2 hours in, a little over 2 hours, and I think I've maybe played for 30 minutes total. So, and not even 30 minutes back to back. So it was like, the game starts, cinematic. You play for maybe like 2 minutes, like to pick up some things and go into a cave. Then you go into another cinematic for like another like 15 minutes or something. And then you play again for like another 5 minutes. And then it's like literally like almost like a 25-minute cutscene. And then you barely get to move. And then like another like 20-minute cutscene. It's like all cutscenes basically right now.
That's Kojima for you.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that like every game of his?
I mean, I feel like the Metal Gears weren't as aggressive with the cutscenes this early on.
Wasn't the end? Oh, that's true. It's at the end when Metal Gear had
like
an hour long.
Like the ending makes sense. Like, I mean, you already fought the final boss. You're just kind of seeing the game just prologue itself. But yeah, this is like in the beginning. Like I was telling Kevin, like 2 hours versus like 30 minutes of gameplay. So it's like an hour. It's like I literally watched a movie. Like, I don't know why he doesn't just make a movie at this point. Like, he clearly, I mean, it's no secret that he's like a film auteur.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, he tweets about movies all the time. Like, I don't know if he just can't, or does he genuinely just love the video game medium so much that he has to still make it a game.
I think it's the latter, because I mean he's with Sony now. Sony owns a movie studio, and he's a big name, and a lot of directors respect him. And he works with Del Toro. Like, he could if he wanted to. He just doesn't.
Mean, yeah, but that's the thing, yeah, because like that's literally what this game feels like. It feels like you really want. It felt like he wanted to make this a movie, but for some reason wasn't allowed to, so he kind of just turned it into a game. And
I always got the impression that he wanted, more often than not, I would say like Bokai or whatever it's called, the sun-based one on Game Boy was an exception.
Yeah, the sun is in your hand?
Yeah, but more often than not, I feel like his whole thing is bringing a movie-like experience into an interactive form, which means it is going to lean more towards movie because it's still a movie-like experience.
Yeah, because isn't that what happened from like the transition from Metal Gear 1 to its remake on the GameCube, Twin Snakes? I don't know if he had anything to do with this, but like that game got like way more cinematic in the transition. Like all the cutscenes, like, you know, they kind of just went nuts with it. It was like an action movie.
It also got a Yoshi in it as a little Easter egg. But no, I think it's funny because I think Sony themselves, their strategy of how to do like cinematic AAA games like Spider-Man and God of War, I think they're doing better what Kojima wants to be doing. I guess granted, this is from an afar point of view. I haven't actually played them, but just like what I've seen of them and heard of the criticisms and the praise, it does feel like he's kind of like, how do I make a game into a movie into a game? And so he's like, or how do we make games more like movies? And those are like slightly different angles that result in one being more of an interactive thing and one being what you were describing.
Yeah, because I mean, as far as the actual game goes, like I really am loving it. Like, the game revolves around traversal and balance, and it's like nothing I've ever played before. Like, it's literally the object of the game is don't fall over. Yeah. Like, you're just going from point A to point B, and you're just figuring out like the most efficient way to get there without trying to fall over. And there is some combat. There are like some sections where you do have to like fight or mainly run away from other enemies. But like the gameplay loop is really fun, and it's just really different. Like, I like it. It's very soothing, and because of like the scenery is just really, really pretty. Like it does feel like you're playing a movie that you're actually like immersing because you're controlling the character, and you have like, I guess, licensed music playing, because I always see like sometimes music will just randomly start playing and you see the name of the song and the artist.
It's beyond licensed. It's a custom soundtrack. They got all these different bands to make original songs like they would for a movie for the game.
Huh.
Like big bands too. Like
I mean, yeah.
Like I'm blanking out. They played at the Game Awards last year.
Churches.
They opened. Churches has a song on there. Bring Me the Horizon has a song on there. They're like pretty big bands in their respective spaces.
Damn. But yeah, I mean, it's really it's surprisingly more challenging than it seems. Like you'd think like you could just like, I'm just gonna sprint to the other destination, but it's like nope. You constantly. I mean, at least since I'm playing on the computer, I'm guessing on a controller you'd be using L and R, but you pretty much shift your weight between your left and right side, and if you're starting to fall over in one direction, you press the other one, and then you kind of balance yourself out. But there's obviously a little bit more to that too, and it's just really fun, and it makes the character Sam, just because you're controlling him the whole time, you're hearing his thoughts and like kind of his comments. I don't know if that's what Norman Reedus normally sounds like, but I feel like his performance is kind of giving off like a freaking David Hayter Snake impersonation. Like it just sounds like he's trying to do his best Snake. But I didn't really watch The Walking Dead.
I mean, he does have a really gravelly voice.
He does?
He's a gravelly guy, yeah. Even when he goes on like Conan, he's a gravelly guy, just for their regular interview.
I mean, I guess like what little I've seen of him outside of, I guess like in those interviews, he seems like a chill guy. But yeah, he just sounds like he's just trying to do a Snake. But I guess if that's how his voice has been, maybe that's why Kojima was attracted to him initially.
Speaking of Conan, have you come across Conan in the game yet? He's in there.
Not yet.
Oh.
I know he is in there though, but yeah, the game, like, it's funny because like it takes itself ridiculously serious, but the plot is like, it's definitely something. Like, I could try to like explain some of it, but I feel like it just comes off as like ridiculously. It's very sci-fi, very artsy fartsy, just very out there. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, just like a very quick premise. It takes place in a world where anytime anyone dies, like their body essentially becomes like a nuke. So they have to dispose of it into an incinerator as soon as possible. Otherwise, it's going to create an explosion that will create like a crater, which attract these like netherworld beings that I'm not really sure what they are yet, but they could kill you, and they will like create like a pool of tar looking water and will drag you in there. But then if you get pulled too much into it, then like an ocean of black tar appears, and you have to run away from like whales and other monsters, and it's kind of crazy. And in this world also, it's like a post-apocalyptic U.S. Like you're pretty much your goal is to get the U.S. back online and getting the country to be prosperous again, while also saving, I guess, your older sister or some kind of relative. But there's also these like little I forget what they're called, tardigrades. Do you know what those are? That's like an actual microscopic. I think they're called like sea bears or I think they're called sea bears or water bears.
No clue.
They're little microscopic creatures. They're like the smallest creature that I think you could see with your naked eye, but they're like very, very tiny. Mm-hmm. If you Google them, like they look like pills with legs and a circular mouth.
Huh.
Did your brother did a little mold of them, right? Is that what?
Yes, he did.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Now I know what you're talking about.
Oh, that's why he did that. It just occurred to me. I'm like, that's a random thing for him to make. Yeah. So these things, like, they're not microscopic in this world. They're like pretty big, and I guess you could just see them floating around, and you could eat them to replenish your health. But these nether beings that I mentioned that are kind of invisible and very deadly, I guess people have these babies, but in this world they're called BBs, like BB, because they're not actual babies. They're like, I guess they consider them like a tool or like an appliance, even though it's literally like a baby and a fetus in a jar. I'm sure everyone has seen it that has heard of Death Stranding.
It's the most iconic thing in the game, probably.
Yeah, and these things are attached to like this like antenna thing that pretty much points in the direction of where these invisible beings are. So there's kind of like some stealth to this game as well. But if like the baby, like if you're falling and down and like getting a lot of damage, the baby's gonna start crying, kind of like Yoshi's Island status. and then you have to like soothe it to sleep or just calm it down just by, rocking it up and down for a while. Pretty long while.
On a scale of some to all, how many drugs was Kojima on when he came up with all this? Like, it's so random.
The thing about it is that I think this is just his normal head. I feel like he does not need drugs to.
You're probably right, honestly. Yeah, but I'm just thinking, like even like being like, oh, what if we had a davening rod to find these creatures? But what if instead of a rod, it was a almost human baby, but not quite a human baby? So we'll take out the vowels and leave the consonants, but it's basically a baby. Like, how do you even think of that? His mind works in such weird, interesting ways.
And the baby, like, it's clearly sentient, and it looks at you and it emotes. Like, it blew like a heart bubble at you once, and like it winks, and I think it saw him flip off Guillermo del Toro. So it has like a little personality, but on top of all that, like there's also rain that they call timefall, but it's basically rain. But anything that the water touches just rapidly ages until it dies if it stays in the rain too long. So you're also like combating that. And also your character, Sam, he can't die. Like anytime I fell off a cliff, like that was really high up, hit my head, and I'm like, oh, I guess that's the game over. But you just end up in this like blue abyss, and you have to float toward your body. You're still like playing, and then you find like all these strengths. You have to find your body, and then you float into it. Then you hold F to like to be reborn. But then it looks like you're like inside his esophagus, like going through tunnels, and then you see the baby pop out, and then it gives you like a thumbs up, and then you immediately get shot out of like Sam's mouth, and he's like, like he just woke up, and it's like, oh, I guess.
What is this
and then,
game?
Wait, hold on, Kevin. And you said you don't think he was on drugs for any of this?
He's absolutely not on drugs.
And it turns out that I guess Sam is what they call a doom, which is I guess someone that can't die, and I guess that's just how that works. Which is interesting as a game mechanic because you can't die, you just have to keep reviving yourself. But
I think what's craziest about this is any of these mechanics could be their own game, but because of who it is, he's like, nah, we're putting us all in one game at once.
Like honestly, like I mean I love the way it plays, and like the plot is just so out there that it's just keeping me entertained. Like and Girl's like, I want to see where this goes because it's so weird. But and then there's also like just like weird, like I mean it's also very silly. Like I mean I mentioned the baby is very over the top. Like Kojima games typically do have a lot of silliness to them. And there's even like when you're like in your waiting room, you could drink Monster Energy. Like it's literally just Monster Energy, and it's like the same like cans that we have, and you could drink a couple of them, and they'll increase your energy bar. But then like what I thought the weirdest part was
the canteen.
There's like some. Oh no, not the canteen. But there's like, I mean that is pretty weird. But I mean yeah, you could take a dump, you could take a piss like whenever you want. But there's also like some figurines on the back of his room, and you could like observe anything in the room, but for whatever reason when you pick the figurines, like the Norman Reedus character Sam, he like walks towards the camera, looks at you, like just straight up looks at the player, and then points at the figurines, and then like guides you in the direction like, oh, look over there, and then you're looking at the figurines, kind of like it's just really weird, but yeah.
That's strange.
It sounds like an experience, and that's something he's very good at, is experience.
It's definitely an experience. Like while everyone else is playing Ghost of Tsushima, like I feel like I'm I'm on like on a drug trip. Like what's going on here? But
and Paper Mario, to be fair, that's also out
and that's the thing is like nothing about this game so far I would say makes it a bad game. Like I can see why it gets a lot of praise, but I could also see why it gets a lot of like flack just because it does kind of feel like a lot of clashing elements that don't feel like they should be together, but they just are. Like, I mean, like this walking simulator game could have probably been coded in some other thing that would have made it way more approachable. But it just happens to be in the most like avant-garde sci-fi, like heavy symbolistic, like everything feels like it's trying to be like heavy-handed symbolism, but that's just Kojima. So yeah,
Kojima unleashed.
Literally, yeah. This is like
freed from the shackles of Konami.
Like, I'm curious, like if he were to do a sequel, like what would he change, or if his next game is just going to be like doubling down on this craziness, but just something else. But all I know is definitely glad I'm able to play it. Not that I wasn't able to before, because I do have a PS4, but I mean, just having it on PC is nice, and like, yeah, it's just awesome.
How does it compare to the PS4 version? Because I know you've seen your brother play it. Has he seen you play this on PC
I don't
to see
think
how it
so.
compares?
I mean, I can't tell the difference because I mean, I haven't really seen the PS4 version lately. But I mean, I can only imagine it's on par, if not maybe a little better. But I also don't have the best monitor either. Like my monitor is good, but like I can also tell that it's not like as nice and crisp and doesn't have as high of a resolution as other monitors I've seen. So it could potentially look better, but yeah, it's kind of hard to say at this point.
Right.
To your earlier point, you know, I want to see Kojima do next. I want to see him go full. Is it George Miller that directed Mad Max and Babe and Happy Feet? Like I want to see, and Kojima has it in him. We talked about before, he did Boktai before. So I want to see him make a super approachable kids game that just has his signature style still somehow. I don't know how, but I think that'd be very interesting coming off Death Stranding to see him do a complete 180 and make something really approachable but still kind of quirky and weird. I don't think he ever will, but that's my dream.
Yeah, because he still wants to do his horror game with Guillermo del Toro and Junji Ito. So I honestly hope that's next for me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, that sounds like the better product. I just want to see what he could cook up.
Yeah.
Maybe when he's done with all the stuff on his slate currently, he goes and makes Babe the game or something.
Yeah, and I know that I think he went on record to say that this new Kojima Productions is going to get into TV and movies, so he might finally direct a movie of his own.
He should. He has the mind for it. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about that. He has so many different ideas.
Right. So that was Death Stranding, as Angel mentioned. There are other people playing Ghost of Tsushima, and that would be me. Ghost of Tsushima, the latest, and I think the last big PS4 exclusive, which is weird because the last PS3 exclusive, the swan song of the PS3, was Last of Us, and Last of Us 2 isn't the PS4 swan song. So I thought that was a little strange.
It was so close.
Yeah,
a month away.
A month difference.
Yep.
I probably would have delayed Last of Us for another month just to have it. Nothing against Ghost of Tsushima, but I feel like it would have been a little bit more fitting, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
For the last game to be The Last of Us?
Yeah, The Last of Us.
And for it to
Part
be
2.
the end of a second generation with a sequel. Yeah, that would have been very poetic of Sony. Yeah.
Yeah. But I mentioned this to your brother, but this is almost poetic in a sense, Ghost of Tsushima, because so for those who don't know, this is Sucker Punch's newest game. But if I'm not wrong,
people?
Yeah, the Sly Cooper people, the infamous people, which Infamous Second Son
Infamous for what?
launched the series,
Oh,
the superhero open world series, which Infamous
with
Second
Cole.
Son, Cole, and then I forgot the
Beanie Man.
third games,
And then Chick
I
Girl.
think Delson was the name of the main character of Second Son, but Second Son launched on the PS4, so it's almost fitting in this way too that they launch with the PS4 and now they're ending.
You also
the
forgot their
PS4.
crowning. You also forgot their crowning achievement. If I'm not mistaken, Sucker Punch made a Sprocket robot on wheels for the N64. I think that is their first game ever. How could you forget
Really?
such a crucial game in gaming history as Sprocket robot on wheels?
they're
Well,
also
because
named
it's in
after
the
that one
Nintendo
movie
podcast.
because they were inspired
I
by
know.
it.
Oh God, that movie, Zack Snyder. What is he doing?
Wait, what? Which movie?
Sucker Punch.
Sucker Punch.
Oh, Sucker Punch. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was thinking Sprocket still, and I'm like, what? He didn't make something called Sprocket. Anyway.
Yeah, so for those who listen to the newest episode of the Nintendo podcast, which I implore you to do, I created a new genre of video game called the Gomie game. And perfectly enough, Ghost of Tsushima is a Gomie game. So far, I'm a fan of everything that this game is having to offer me, with the exception of the story and the main characters, but we'll get to that in a little bit later. Basically, the game takes place on the island of Tsushima, a real-life island in Japan, and you play a samurai named Jin during a Mongol invasion. And this is, while it's not historically accurate, this is apparently something that did happen. Yeah, so I thought that was interesting, but it's still, it's still a video game.
So I took some liberties.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Similar to like the earlier Assassin's Creed games, or I guess because I haven't actually played the new ones. But you're going around this open world, this island of Tsushima, and you're
I thought those were
liberating.
non-fiction.
What happened?
I thought those were non-fiction.
Oh no, those are very
Assassin's
fiction.
Creed?
Aliens included.
Ah, yeah, it's all real. I mean, according to New York Times, they found alien vehicles somewhere on Earth, so... Yeah.
Huh.
It was nice knowing you guys.
Yep, you too. Good luck in
Yeah.
your future life on Saturn.
But anyways, as I was saying, you're going around the open world and you're liberating various checkpoints of like Mongols and saving Tsushima's inhabitants, and you're gathering new points of interest. The combat is very much like Sekiro for those who know. I love that game. I love most From Software games. But you'll have to parry, deflect, and dodge all incoming attacks, and you'll get little visual cues as to which one you're supposed to do. There are different stances that work better against different types of enemies, so there is a stone stance that will help you take down enemies that have shields. There is like a water stance. Or, you know what? I actually got those confused. The stone stance helps against people against like lances, and the water stance is against Mongols that have shields. So there is some variation in the combat, where Sekiro you're just a swordsman. There is a let's go button in this game, which I absolutely love. Did you get a chance to see this, Angel? Like when your brother was playing?
No, I haven't. I've only seen like very small glimpses. Most of what I know about the game was from the State of Play, the last one,
Oh,
right
okay.
before it came out.
Yeah, so my favorite part of this game, which never gets old, is the let's go button, which is basically you walk up to a group of Mongols and you press up on the D-pad, and Jin goes, "All right, let's do this. Who wants to fight me?" And then one of the Mongols will walk up to you, and you're essentially like in a duel to see who, like an old Western or an old samurai movie, more would actually fit this better than a Western. Where you'll hold down triangle and you'll wait for your enemy to attack you, and you release triangle, and then you'll do a one-hit kill on them. Huh. And it goes into like this cinematic mode where you have the top and bottom black bars, and it's I've been playing this game for over 30 hours, and the let's go button never gets old. It's always so fun just to cut down enemies with one swipe of the sword. And another little touch that I love about this game is that you can wipe off the blood of your sword, which I don't know. I've always thought that was a it literally just no. It's literally just to look cool
and feel cool
and feel cool. Yeah, you feel like a samurai. What can I say? Like I said, once you clear a checkpoint, you open up a small area on the map, a surrounding area on the map, which will show you points of interest. And boy, there are a lot of points. So there are like multiple different types of shrines that will level up your character. There are these little fox dens where you'll be roaming around the map and you'll see a fox and you'll follow him and he'll lead you through this small little platforming section, which will lead you to a
gold?
shrine.
Oh.
No, not to gold. But you'll pray at a fox shrine. And then afterwards, almost every single time, you can actually pet the fox. So this game is a 10 out of 10 for me. There are like hot springs where you get to choose what you want to contemplate once you're in the hot springs. There are also these points on the map where you can construct your own haiku from different little phrases that the game gives you.
What does that do?
Yep. What does that do? What does it do? I forgot what it does. Oh, it gives you a headband, like a.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
So it's a cosmetic thing at that point.
Yeah,
that's cool.
This game is very cosmetic focused, which is interesting. You'll unlock different types of armors which do different things, but then you could make your armor black. You can make it red. It's very style focused, which is interesting. Which, yeah. There are also tons and tons of collectibles, which, like I said, this game was made by Sucker Punch, so they're notorious for their collectibles in their open world games, especially the earlier Infamous games where you had to find these little shards that would sometimes blend into the minimap. Which that leads me to my next talking point, where I've been collecting all these collectibles for over 30 hours, and I think that I just finished the first act of the game, which
How long is this game?
I have
Probably a 40-hour game.
I have no idea. Like I said, I've been playing 30 hours. I finished the first area because you can zoom out of the map and you see that there are 3 chunks of Tsushima. But I'm still not even done with everything on the first chunk. So like I've unlocked a bunch of things. I think I'm actually done upgrading my character. But
Really?
I still have 2 acts to go. Yeah. I don't know there's an 100% trophy, but at this point I'm really committed, so I might as well play out the rest of these.
There better be if you're putting that
100
much
hours.
time in.
Yeah.
Although now I understand why it's the final release on PS4, because if they had to delay PS5, this game would keep people busy up through the delay, it sounds like. That's a lot of content.
Yeah, there's and I understand how it could probably get repetitive for some players, but if you know me, I love my repetitive games, especially if I could just have a Twitch stream in the background. Mm-hmm. Where the game falters, and it's a good thing that there's a lot of content, is the characters are really, really boring. They're supposed to... You meet a lot of people that help you liberate Tsushima, but I don't care about any of them. I don't even care about the main villain. The main character, Jin, he is a wet blanket. He's all about honor, and since this is a stealth game, you do the very dishonorable thing of just cutting up your enemies, like just backstabbing them and just slicing their throats from behind. And the game does make a mention of this. Like the very first time that you stealth kill somebody, you have a flashback to where like your mentor says, "No, that is very dishonorable." But after that, it's like it's a free for all. You can just stealth your way throughout this entire game, and you'll never hear anything about it being dishonorable after that first cutscene, which I thought was very strange. It's not like
You think they'd make a bigger deal out of it if they
Yeah.
bothered to put a flashback?
Unless you're like, are you playing it wrong? Like, do they have a way they want you to play it and you are like
Watch.
subverting that? Like, is that what's
You
going
beat
on?
the game and you get like some other ending just because you did that.
Imagine if the game, like, you're 95 hours in or whatever, and then the game just, like, abruptly ends, and you just die at the hand of someone doing what you did to everyone else to you. And
For
then
the
it
true
flashes
ending-
back, and he's like, I told you not to do that. And then you're like, what? And that's just the end of the game. And you don't get any plot, like, resolution or anything. It just abruptly ends.
I mean, that could be cool. I wouldn't deny that being cool, but they give you so many points. Like, there's tall grass that you can hide in. Like, it is a stealth-focused game, but you are able to go into, like, every enemy camp, swords blazing, and just challenge everybody, you know? So, and there's no... Unlike the Infamous games where you could be, like, a good hero or a bad hero, this doesn't have a morality system. So I feel like if they were to implement something like that, it'd be like the Ghost side, where you are this stealth samurai, or the honorable samurai path, and you could see like a visual slider going up or down. But so far, nothing about the game has indicated that is going to be a thing, unless they just decide to throw it on you in the ending, right at the end of the game.
So it's going the honorable samurai path, literally just saying, let's go to every single enemy in the entire game.
Yeah, pretty much.
Damn.
But then
And I bet someone
they
did that.
also give you... Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, and I bet someone definitely did that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that somebody... And the game does force you to do stealth. Oh, that's the other thing. There are missions. There are main story missions where it's like you can't raise the alarms, so you absolutely have to do the game stealthy, like the mission stealthy. It's weird. You've actually got me thinking about it now.
Must build towards something.
So are you always a samurai, or can you actually go like full ninja and then like Naruto run all over the place?
No, you're always a samurai, but you have different tools to help you kill the enemies, these Mongols, stealthily. You have a smoke bomb. Let's say you have 3 guys around you. You literally pocket sand onto the floor, and then
Ninja vanish.
Yeah, and then you could vanish, or you could do stealth kills, like in in the smoke, and you could do chain stealth kills, which do look pretty cool. Then you do have kunais, so that's another cool thing. You have sticky bombs. You have quite the arsenal of weapons that would be very dishonorable if your old mentor would see you doing this. So I don't know. So maybe it does lead to.
It has to.
I would hope so, because like, what's the point of giving me that cutscene where
at the start like that?
At the start, yeah. So
yeah, no, you're definitely like subverting what he wants. Not you as the player, but like the game's having you subvert what is expected to then throw some wrench at you later. That has to be it.
Yeah, and like I said, the main character does every now and then he's like, no, I have to look your enemy. I have to look at my enemy in the eye.
In the eye.
Yeah. So, I don't know. It's a weird conflict within the game, but so far I'm definitely enjoying it. The game's beautiful. It's some of the vistas are really, really great looking, and the game has an excellent photo mode, which I've uploaded some on my Twitter. If you guys want to see that, not you two, the listeners. I don't want you guys seeing anything that I do on my Twitter.
You might have to block me. I might have seen it.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding, of course.
How is there a photo mode? Usually I find photo modes in video games to be kind of cumbersome to use. At least like on like the one in God of War isn't that great.
It's very intuitive, honestly. I haven't used many of the photo modes. I know the last game that I guess Last of Us had one, but I never used that, nor did I ever use it with Spider-Man. But it's literally just hitting right on the D-pad. You don't have to go into the
another menu or something.
Yeah, you just literally hit right on the D-pad and you're in photo mode.
Oh, that's cool. Definitely would make me want to take more pictures.
Yeah, just the ease of access. But
do you find that in games with photo modes you get too distracted by it sometimes? Like, there's definitely been times. I think Mario Odyssey's one, and maybe Animal Crossing, but mostly Mario Odyssey's one that really stuck in my mind where I kept not progressing because I'd be sitting there messing with the photo mode for like 25 minutes.
I just spent a lot of time taking pictures in Mario Odyssey.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that it had a photo mode.
Oh, yeah, it has filter. It is a full-on Instagram. It has like filters. It has.
They kept adding cool filters too.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time trying to make pictures of making it look like Mario was killing someone, and I know Elvis did that too.
I just wanted to make ones as if it was real life. Like, I'd be taking ones that would be things I would put on my Instagram in real life if it was not a video game. Like, if it was not Plumber in a video game, but like me in life. But that's funny that you want to kill with Mario. How dare you? He's a wholesome man.
Did Legend
Actually,
of Zelda
I guess he's not that wholesome. Yeah, it did. Yeah, it had a camera, like a full-on camera.
Yeah, and you could even have Link like pose with the camera and like smile and
do
wink.
Selfies. Yeah.
I guess since Wind Waker HD, they started doing that.
Wind Waker was, I feel like, the first game the HD Wind Waker with the with the elaborate Picto box. I feel like it was the first game where
there was a selfie mode.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. And then after that, Nintendo started doing it more, and another company started doing it kind of in tandem. I don't think Nintendo necessarily was at the forefront of it, but they were definitely.
Oh no.
They definitely were like part of the initial wave.
Yeah, Sony's really embraced it with all their first party titles for sure, though.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've seen some good looking Ghost of Tsushima photo mode photos.
Oh yeah, I've seen lots of really good like Horizon and God of War ones where it's like, damn, like did the game look that nice? Like I don't remember.
And it just makes sense for them because like not only is it fun for us to like waste so much time on, but then you share them on social, like you were saying how they're on your Twitter, and then like free marketing for the game. They don't even have to do it. Like it's literally like half the word of mouth marketing taken care of for them just by like adding a little photo mode. It's like I remember saying Cookie Mama, the one thing it did right, the Switch version of Cookie Mama was it had a photo mode that had instant sharing to your networks and had all the like food filters and everything like Instagram would.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, what could you possibly take a picture of in Cookie Mama?
The dishes. Because you could
they all
plate
look the
them.
same?
They do. That's the problem. But you could plate them. You can set them up with different backgrounds. You can change the camera angle. You can use 12 different filters or something like. And again, like ultimately they all look the same, but the idea there was
okay.
You can add a caption.
I take it back then.
You can add stickers. You can unlock stickers and add more stickers. Like all that is built like, I think, okay, it's cool for the player, but really it's a marketing thing.
Yeah.
Which is smart.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's Ghost of Tsushima for me. Any more video games that we want to talk about?
I'm got Paper Mario on the next RAM Nintendo. I'm excited for that. I'm playing that. So stay tuned, listener.
I still have to purchase that. Man,
it's cool. It's cool. That's all I'm gonna say.
I have way too many things on my plate right now, especially since I started paying for Final Fantasy 14. I have to get back to that.
Oh, you're paying for it now?
Yeah.
Luckily because I transferred it over to my Steam account, it gave me another 30 days, and I still have 26 days left of my next month of playing for free. So I managed to put in like another hour the other day. So nice being able to play the game in 60 frames per second, and with actual like nice resolution. I had to like usual put all the settings down and down-res the game so much just so it could run at a steady 15 frames per second.
15
frames.
I'd rather have a steady 15 than 60 for like 3 seconds, then it's like frozen, then it's like maybe 3 frames per second, then it's like 60 again for a couple. It's like,
true.
I'd rather it be consistent.
Yeah, I would take consistency over high frame rate any day.
The resolution also made like all the text ridiculously huge, so whenever there's like a bunch of players running around, it was really hard to see like where I was going. It was just like an ocean of text. So it's definitely nice.
How long were you playing it in that way?
Like since a month, but it's only like
how
very slowly.
Oh, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, definitely a whole new world. But yeah, definitely lots to play.
Yeah,
lots to watch.
Lots to watch. Perfect segue. I know how much Jason loves those. Jason,
I do.
what have you been watching?
Jason has a Segway at his house.
I wish I did. I've ridden a Segway. I don't own one. No. They actually just stopped. They just stopped making them.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Wait, Segway is a brand or a type of vehicle?
No, it's
Segway is a brand. I think Segway is a brand living on making scooters, but Segway is those silly vehicles where you lean forward to go forward, and mall cops love them. They're gone.
Really? Oh, yep. Kind of makes me a little sad.
Yeah, so, they're actually, honestly, I know we had a beautiful Segway and now we're segueing into Segways, but honestly, like, they are a really cool way to explore a new city. Like, you go into like a group, like you're like a pod of dolphins, but you're on Segways, and it's just really easy to like maneuver around and stuff. Like, I have done it when visiting places, and it's actually really fun, especially when there's like hills and stuff, because you just zip up the hill.
Damn, I'm kind of bummed out because like I do like the idea of riding like the birds and stuff. Like when we went to Austin, that was a really fun place to just like ride around in. But I feel like a Segway is like more chill, like something you could actually ride like inside a mall or something, as opposed to I wouldn't use a bird, or I don't think you can use a bird.
You cannot,
or a lime. Or
you
whatever.
Also can't use a Segway unless you're Paul Blart. So, like only the mall cops can do it. But
maybe one day I'll be a mall cop.
Big aspirations over there. But what was I gonna say? Yeah, the thing with Segways that's interesting is like, so the brand's dead, but they're not going anywhere. I'm sure all these tour groups are gonna use them for decades to come until they all stop working. But yeah, it was interesting because I remember when they first came out, the idea was they're gonna be the vehicle of the future. Everyone's gonna have one. That's how you're gonna move around in urban areas. Like New Yorkers won't be walking; they'll be Segwaying. Who was that swing and a miss? Like, boy, they did not come anywhere near that. But they gave it, a 15, 20-year run and then gave up.
Damn, was it the COVID or just in general?
No, it's just in general. I think COVID didn't help because the type of people that did buy them were tour groups and touristy things, and mall cops and all those things have, like, ceased to be. Malls are closed again, at least in parts of the country. Tourism's down. Like, travel's down. So,
Damn.
Which means more time to play and watch things. Like I've been doing with Middleditch and Schwartz on Netflix, and that is how you segue. Anyway.
Gotta learn from the master.
Oh, yeah, I've been doing this for 9 years. But yeah, since you did ask, I've been watching – it's a little late to the party for me because it came out in April, but I've been watching the Middleditch and Schwartz, or I just finished watching the Middleditch and Schwartz improv specials. Are you guys familiar with what these guys do at all? Should I explain a bit of their approach? It's a little different than most shows.
Is Middleditch Loki from the Marvel universe?
No, that would be Middle Hitch, also Thomas.
Middle?
Wait, isn't Tom Middle? Wait, what's the name of the guy that plays Loki? Is it Tom
Hiddleston?
Hiddleston. That's right. I was way off.
Is Schwartz of FAO Schwartz film?
Correct. It's a giant stuffed bear that does 3 hours of improv on Netflix. Yes. No, it's
Schwartz was the voice of Sonic from the
yes,
Sonic
Ben Schwartz. You may know him as John Ralphio in Parks and Rec.
Ben Schwartz.
Yeah, it's Ben Schwartz. So Parks and Rec, John Ralphio, Sonic in the Sonic movie, Sonic in the upcoming Sonic movie 2, confirmed a few days ago. And Middleditch is Thomas Middleditch, who you may know from Silicon Valley as Richard Hendricks, and more recently he's one of the voices in Solar Opposites on Hulu. And the two of them have been doing.
I didn't watch Silicon Valley, so.
Oh well, you've seen that one scene though from season 1, right? Where they're doing the calculations of the crowd.
I doubt he's seen it.
I think he has because he's referenced it to me before. But anyway, he's the main guy. He's like the Mark.
The one where they have to, people stand tip to tip or something.
The tip to tip equation.
Yes, he's the main.
He's
the main guy.
The dude with the curly hair.
Kind of curly, sort of.
Yeah,
he's like the Zuckerberg looking guy. Yeah.
Wait, the guy that came out in Deadpool?
Yes. I think he was in Deadpool 2. Yes.
What?
He was also he was in Godzilla 2.
He's the friend of Wade Wilson, the one in the bar?
That's
wait.
TJ Miller.
That's TJ Miller. Oh, I'm thinking of the wrong. Not that curly hair guy. Godzilla, the comic relief in the second Godzilla.
The guy that said Zilla when someone said, "Oh my God."
No.
Okay, this is a lost
cause.
cause.
That's from Good Up.
Point is,
Lost Cause.
It's funny because both of them were in Godzilla, so it's slightly confusing.
I don't remember him in Godzilla.
He was in the second one in War of the Monsters.
I guess I'll Google him.
Anyway, I'm going to start talking and I'll patiently wait for Angel to go, "Oh, this guy," in like 20 seconds. But, so the two of them together for a long time have been doing a stage show of what they call long-form improv, which is the idea that instead of doing bits here and there and getting different prompts from different people, they talk to a specific member in the audience about a specific thing for a couple minutes, glean a bunch of information, and then riff for a whole hour. There it is. And you know what? It was exactly 20 seconds, I think. But, that guy. But yeah, so instead...
you should just a Canadian actor.
And you wouldn't have jumped to...
That would have gotten you to know who
you wouldn't have
was?
Jumped to Seth Rogen or Ryan Reynolds or any of the other...
He was also in The Wolf of Wall Street. Come on, man.
He was?
Apparently, according to IMDb.
For like 5 seconds.
Oh, okay. But, so these two, what they do is instead of like, well, I say like bits and bobs, they do like a single narrative. So they'll talk to one audience member and learn about a thing in their life that happened and then get to know some of the people that were involved in what happened and ask questions. And then they literally, on the fly, construct a full story that more often than not will actually wrap around by the end to reference things that happened in the beginning of the improv. Like it feels like a fully fleshed out story, but they're doing it on the fly. And it's really kind of cool. So there's 3 of them on Netflix. There's one called Parking Lot Wedding, which is like the best of the bunch probably. There's another called Law School Magic, which is And then of the 3, like they're all good, but it's the of the 3. And there's a third one called Dream Job, which it like, because it's improv, sometimes they forget who they are. Because they're not just being 2 characters. They are establishing characters and then jumping around. So like Ben Schwartz will star as a character, but then he introduces another character later that's part of the story. So now Middleditch has to become that first character briefly. And like, so they're bouncing off each other for a full hour. And what's insane is how well they like thread the needle of the story mostly. And I saw them once a few years ago here in LA at Largo. Because they used to do the show regularly here. Then they went on tour. They played at Carnegie Hall in New York. Like, it's kind of a big thing now. And I was really, like, I thought it was just pure luck that they were able to kind of, like, bring it back with, like, a callback at the end that made sense at the beginning and all. It was all, like, obviously it's kind of silly. It's not, like, a good plot, but it's a lot. Like, you could follow it, and it has, like, a thread. But what was crazy is I'd say successfully 2 out of 3 specials, they managed to do that every single time. One of them a little less so. But I guess that's just their secret talent is they're able to literally do a whole in-depth story on the fly, and occasionally they kind of forget who they are. The ending of the third one was really funny. It's not really spoiler, but they basically completely lose the thread, and it's like them trying to reestablish what's going on while not like showing that they're trying to figure out like who are you and who is I, but they do it like in character, which makes it really funny. But I would say if you like comedy at all, like this is like a masterclass of like how to like on the fly.
If you like comedy
at all, no, but if you like comedy shows, like if you like improv or that sort of thing, like, this is a really good example of like
high praise. Right
it
there.
is. If you have ever laughed,
I mean, you
might
as well just say like if you're human,
if you have laughed, no, but if you like enjoy going to like comedy shows and kind of the more off the cuff, like it's not like deeper like comedy about societal issues. It's not like commentary. It's not stand up, but if it's like kind of more wacky and fly by seat of your pants, a little more like out there. They're really, really funny and good at what they do. And there's not a whole lot else to say because I don't want to like spoil any of them. But there is a fourth. The only reason I'm really bringing it up is one, there's a fourth one they recorded that Netflix hasn't put on the service, and I kind of want them to do it. So I feel like the more people that watch it, there's hope for that. But two, they have both said publicly the only way we're going to get more of these taped ones is if people start watching it more. So this is my plea to the world, because I want to watch more of these, and in COVID they can't just do it in LA like they used to. Like they used to do it like every 2 months here, so you could just go and see it. Not possible anymore. So this is very selfish of me, and I'm bringing it up selfishly, but it is really funny, and yeah, I think it's worth checking it out if you like improv at all.
Definitely not watching it now, but
They're
good to know it exists.
Duo.
But what were you say, Kevin?
They're a great duo. They're I hate carpool karaoke and like all those shows that spun off from bits within late night TV shows, but their episode of Carpool Karaoke is legitimately funny.
Yeah, it is. And they also, like, they even did a thing a couple weeks ago. Netflix just threw it on their Twitter. It was the two of them playing Animal Crossing together for like 7 minutes. And they just go into this weird bit of how, like, I think it was Thomas Middleditch is like, it's his secret science lab, and like Ben Schwartz is just trying to leave and keeps getting cornered. But like, it sounds like dumb, but they make it funny for like it's like a 7-minute gag just set in the museum in Animal Crossing. But they do a good job. My point is, like, they the silliness shines through, and they're very good at thinking on their feet, and just like, yeah, it is not, again, there's not a ton to say because I just want people to watch it. So
I almost want to check it out out of curiosity, but I feel like I should know better.
If you were only check out one of the three, do Parking Lot Wedding. It's the one that's getting the most like praise, so to speak, and it's the one that like feels the most like how I described it, where they could thread the needle really well. Law School Magic's probably the weakest of the three, but then Dream Job, it's the one that falls apart in the end. But honestly, I love when people screw up. Like, I love when people break on SNL, or like Bill Hader playing Stefan always. Like, that's like my favorite thing on SNL. So them falling apart, like, oh, Stefan's great. Are you kidding? But them falling apart like makes it so much funnier. Like when they break. So yeah, Dream Job's pretty good for that alone. But yeah, wait, do you not? Why are you shocked that I like Stefan on SNL?
I don't know. I mean, I would say that's one of the weaker things about SNL in general. But
what's their stronger thing, Angel? Expert of SNL that you are.
I think he's talking more about when they break character, right? Or Stefan.
I'm thinking of Stefan.
No, I meant specifically Stefan, but yeah, I just said the best thing about them is the when they roll the credits. Yeah.
Well, what's funny, do you know the backstory of why Bill Hader always breaks his Stefan? It actually makes it kind of funnier in retrospect.
All right, go ahead.
Thanks. So basically, they would change the script on him between rehearsal and going live, and the person that would change it would be John Mulaney. John Mulaney used to write for SNL, and him and Bill Hader made Stefan. So Mulaney would specifically go into the cue card room, work with the cue card guys, and swap out the punchlines without telling Bill Hader, and would do very targeted jokes that would get him to crack. So it was basically, by the end of like the Stefan run in the later years, it was literally a game to see how quickly they can make Bill Hader laugh and break character. And I think their hit rate was probably like 100% because he could never hold it together.
Oh, now I feel like checking out some of those clips.
Yeah, no, and like John Mulaney has obviously gone on to become a huge comedian of his own right. But yeah, Stefan was his and Bill Hader's creation. So
the most recent appearance that John Mulaney did on SNL was pretty hilarious. Oh, not the most recent one, but the most recent one that he showed up on, that Stefan bit where he whispers, where John Mulaney whispers into Stefan's ear. That was genuinely pretty hilarious.
And that was also something that he was trying just to get Bill Hader to break. Like, apparently he whispered, like, my sister works at Hot Topic or something totally out of left field.
He said my girlfriend works at Yoshinoya Beef Bowl.
Oh, that's what it was, right. Yeah. Better, more, yeah. But, yeah, and like, Bill Hader can just not hold it together when something random happens, so. But yeah, he also, like, he uses SNL these days like this weird little outlet where he just does, like those musicals he always writes. Do you know what I'm talking about, Kevin? I'm pretty sure Angel does it. But basically, Mulaney, every time he comes on, he's at 3 times now, they do a bit where it's like some normal scene at a restaurant that breaks out into like a sort of really bad, cheesy parody of like famous Broadway songs. But it's like the most elaborate set pieces. They have like, like people hanging on like harnesses, and they like have the whole cast get involved. It always turns into like a big musical number, and it's so over the top and honestly dumb. But John Mulaney just has the clout that he's like, I'm going to do this SNL, and they're like, okay, and it's just become this like running thing where they just like, how do they make it more absurd than the last one? It's almost like a meta level type of thing.
I didn't realize John Mulaney was as big as he was, just because I remember people making a big deal that I guess they got him for Spider-Ham, but I just thought it was just some normal dude. But I mean, I don't know. I feel like I wasn't the biggest fan of the voice of Spider-Ham, but I mean, I've seen his other stuff after the fact, and I'm like, yeah, he's pretty funny sometimes.
Honestly, like the horse in the hospital bit he does, which goes back years now, but it's kind of a comparison of our current president and how the government's kind of around it. But the bit he does, like it's so good.
I thought that was his weakest.
Really?
His weakest one. Yeah. That not that bit, but that stand up where the horse.
To be honest, I haven't seen that whole
set?
stand up. I've seen that bit because he did a. Sorry, I'm not trying to brag. He did a thing in LA years ago that Conan was at. So I didn't know Mulaney that well, but I went to see Conan, and Mulaney was workshopping the horse in the hospital bit. So the one that's on the special, I think, slightly different than what I saw. It's probably better in the special, but I haven't actually seen the rest of the special around it. Just that bit, like I don't know, 6 months, a year prior or something.
Right.
But yeah, but it was really. I thought it was really funny, but yeah, I don't know about the special as a whole. I actually am very bad about watching stand-up specials. Like even Mildred and Schwartz is one of the few times I've watched like a taped comedy special. Like usually I just like would rather, because we're in LA and we have the luxury of having being the epicenter of comedy outside of New York and outside New York and Chicago. If I like usually for those I prefer seeing it in person because I very rarely actually like laugh out loud at things on TV. Like a crowd is usually what helps. You know, like you see a movie in a theater, you gotta laugh more with the crowd than if you're at home.
Oh, that you were saying, like hearing the crowd laugh reminds me that something was funny.
Well, it's not that, but it is sort of a thing where it's like a collective. Like I've noticed, I tend to laugh more if I'm in a group of people laughing. Like you could say something to me one on one, and I'll be like, "Huh, that's funny." But then if you say it with the group and everyone starts laughing, it's just like it's contagious. It's kind of like a yawn in a way. Like I will, like if you hear laughter, it sort of does reinforce it. That's why laugh tracks are a thing because they're kind of like this is what's funny, and they're hoping that like trip something in your brain to agree. But yeah, which is what was kind of weird about seeing Palm Springs in a drive-in is like you couldn't hear the laughter. It's still a very good movie, but but like it was.
Yes, I actually saw Palm Springs on when was it Wednesday? Very good movie.
It's good, right? Yeah.
I really liked it. Although the ending, the ending, I feel was a little too ambiguous.
Really? They pretty clearly explained what the outcome was.
Specifically with J.K. Simmons' character.
Oh. Yeah, I have a theory, but yeah, they didn't spell it out. You're right.
Yeah. We can talk about that
We'll talk about this offline.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I can't remember what I was saying before that. But yeah, generally I don't watch comedy specials, but Mildred and Schwartz was I would recommend it. Again, because I'm selfish, but also because it's really good.
Right.
So, and Netflix.
Do any of these specials ever get censored or anything?
No, it's Netflix. Of course not. Netflix doesn't care. Like so the only reason things are ever censored is because they're concerned about advertisers or the FCC caring. When you're a private,
so if it was on TV, they'd probably just bleep some stuff out.
Yes, if they were on not cable. Even cable, you don't have to bleep. You don't have to bleep anything on TBS versus NBC. The reason they do is because advertisers align their brands with those shows. So like maybe you don't want to hear someone like string together 7 F words and call someone something bad, because then it's like now Dove soap, and you're like, oh, Dove endorses that. But when you're Netflix, when you're paying, or when you're HBO, that's a really good example. You know, you're paying a premium subscription. There are no ads. There is no association. So you can do whatever you want on there as long as the network itself stands behind that as part of their brand. So in Netflix's case, with, Netflix is a joke as their whole like marketing scheme, they are basically anything funny is fair game, and they'll, put anything. They have every major comedian now and everything. So why is there a concern you have with like censorship recently or something?
No, not really, but it's just more like in the last weeks, I guess like something came up that I just never thought about before that made me go like, oh, that explains a lot. And then, it's pretty much all about censorship and localization, specifically in the world of anime. Like I, for a long time, always wondered like why a lot of my cousins and some people I knew that grew up in Mexico would tell us that like, oh, anime and like Latino America is like way better than it is here. And I never really knew why, or never really thought about it. In my head it's just like, well, it's in Spanish. It's like, I don't know, like I guess they have some other shows that we don't have, but never really put too much thought into it. And like after like looking more into it and just just getting more educated in the topic, I guess I learned it pretty much just revolved around censorship, and that's pretty much the big crux of it. Because I guess in Mexico, like how most cartoons here, especially like on Cartoon Network and Channel 11 or even Channel 5, like they're kind of ride or die, especially like in the 90s, like on their merchandise. Like if it's not gonna produce money for merchandise, like they will cancel a show almost outright.
Or the opposite, the show doesn't exist except to be a commercial to sell the toys.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And Mexico didn't really have the financial means to create their own shows to produce their own merchandise like the US did. Like all they could really do was just kind of get like licenses to stuff, but that's not going to make them as much money as having your own license. So they were kind of in that kind of like holding pattern. And I guess around that time in the 90s, I guess that's like when anime was getting really popular, and something that they did versus the US, like the US like still wanted to merchandise the heck out of everything. So they were very picky about what anime they got, and they pretty much, like, as many of you now know that watched anime at any point, or even those that really don't, like I know Jason is well aware of how crazy they localize a lot of anime here.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, like almost any kind of reference to anything Japanese is completely changed. Sometimes the locations are changed, and in a lot of extreme cases, like Knights of the Zodiac comes to mind, they completely chop up the story and change it completely just to be a completely different narrative. They change the characters, sometimes orientation, their, like, the way they talk, like pretty much everything else, just to be something completely different, just to both censor and just make it okay for, I guess, a US audience, or the way they thought it would have been okay.
The prime example of that's something you and I saw. Well, actually, two examples. One, the rice balls in Pokemon being called donuts. Even when I was 8, I'm like, that's a lie. But two,
Yeah.
The prime example that you and I watched together was also on Netflix, the Toys That Made Us, or whatever it's called, Power Rangers. Non-anime, but from Japan, and then they chopped it up completely and shot new stuff for half of it, all because they didn't think it would resonate with an audience in America.
Yeah. Like literally, we only share the footage of the fight scenes. Everything else is completely 100% original to the
and
US.
Dubbed over, clearly.
Yeah, which is
And
why
that was-
like
and
a
it
lot
was
of people,
all-
like a lot of people may not even notice that like you almost never see the Power Rangers themselves like right next to Rita,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of funny because it's like because they were never there.
They're never in the same shot.
Or like a cartoon that I remembered growing up, like in in middle school or high school. There was a show called Card Captors that
Yeah, on
like in
Toonami.
in the US, like it was called Card Captors. In Japan, I think it was called like Card Captors Sakura, or it pretty much had her name in the title. But in the US, they edited the anime to make it seem like the secondary character. There's a guy in that show that is kind of like
Lee, right?
Lee. He's like a friend, but they pretty much make it out so that they're either like equally as important in the story, or he's more important, versus making her the main character, which is what it was in overseas and everywhere else. And I guess where Mexico comes into this is that because for Mexico it was so much cheaper just to just import these shows and not touch them outside of just translating
Redubbing
them.
Yeah.
That's literally all they would do. So like Mexico essentially got like pure uncut like animes of so many different kinds, like, which explains why, like, looking back, why I had aunts and cousins that would watch these shows that I never even heard of here, because they were so niche, because they just literally grabbed anime after anime and just dumped them out as they were, like without censoring them or anything, just dubbing over them, which is just nuts to me. Like I don't know, I thought that was pretty interesting, especially since like we always had this mentality growing up, like, oh, these are the way these shows were, and then you grew up going, then later you find out like, the show I watched was actually not even like the correct one, or it was just completely different. Like the Knights of the Zodiac.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, like last thought on that, like the Knights of the Zodiac one, like that was like a 130 something episode anime, like when the US and Mexico like ported it over, and Mexico just showed all of them, but the US chopped it up and just grabbed like, they made like 37 episodes out of all of that. So you can imagine how confusing or nonsensical, or why that show failed, essentially.
The one that always got me was Yu-Gi-Oh! How the cards didn't look like the physical cards that we had. But when you saw
like
because of the FTC, right? The FTC is the one that goes up for that one because of FTC regulations. But if you saw the movie, the cards looked exactly like ours. So it was weird whenever Yugi would play a card like Celtic Guardian in attack mode. But it was like, how do you know that that's the Celtic Guardian? Nowhere on the cards does it say Celtic Guardian, and the backs of the cards were also different. They were like plain two-toned, while the actual Yu-Gi-Oh cards do have like a swirly design on them. Like that's the one that I was like, huh, weird.
I do think it's kind of interesting that this is very much a problem of our generation, because I feel like the internet and the fact that everything's accessible to everyone through the internet is sort of leveling that playing field. Because obviously there's still going to be merch and stuff that is catered to different markets, but like if you look at like Netflix, what they're doing, they're releasing things from all over the world for all over the world, and they're accessible from pretty much all the different Netflixes, unless it's produced by another company and they just bought the rights. Like if it's stuff they're producing in-house, they are making it available in every market. So we have stuff that we can watch from other countries that is subtitled for us. I mean, extreme example, kind of Narcos wasn't made for other countries, but that's all subtitles. And and they had a Spanish audience in mind when they made it, no doubt. But then we have stuff that they can just export wholesale to like Ireland or something, and it's different than like how it was in the 90s where they had to cater to a market to make it work. Now just like we're just blasting it out to everyone, and if it resonates with certain audiences, great, and if not, that's okay. We have the other audience, and it's kind of all one. It's very similar to the worldwide localization of games now, how they try and do day and date for stuff. Like even Atlas is getting in on it now with like Shin Megami Tensei. Where it used to be like, oh, we could stagger it, it doesn't matter, but the internet's kind of forcing it because people will pirate it, people will find all the spoilers. So it's just weird. It's one of those things I don't think about when we were a kid, like how, our parents would be like, when we were kids, TV was black and white, and you had to walk over and turn the knob to change the channel. We're like, how can it change from what we have? It's like, well, actually, a lot. It's such a different ball game now than it was when we were kids.
I know. We literally are going to have a lot of those stories of back when we were kids. I mean, the fact that like a lot of these anime like were completely done and almost took like sometimes like over a year to even make it overseas, and now literally I could watch like an episode of some anime that I'm watching right now on Crunchyroll like an hour or less, or sometimes at the same time as when it airs in Japan, which is nuts. Crazy times.
Well, and it's gonna be even weirder because we're now gonna have this whole pocket of shows that are like socially distanced shows. Like there's gonna be a pocket of sports that are like weird. There's gonna be a pocket of game shows.
Like an Apple show that's about like working from home or something.
Well,
like
so Mythic Quest did a special work from home episode, and actually this kind of speaking of segues, this kind of segues nice into something I wanted to bring up at some point in this episode, which was the 30 Rock reunion they did. Cause
they had a reunion?
Yeah, so they did a reunion on NBC. I guess I'll like do the table sayings here, and I'll get to my point. They had a reunion on NBC. It was about a week ago, 2 weeks ago. And basically NBC, so every network, are you guys familiar with upfronts that networks do?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, we got one yes, one no. Good enough. I'm going to explain it. Basically, the idea is every May, every network will line up their fall shows and their summer shows and present them to advertisers as a pitch of, this is why you need to advertise on our network. This is why you need to advertise during these blockbuster shows we're going to have. This is basically what our network is about for the next 9 to 12 months. They couldn't do that due to COVID, obviously. You can't have a physical event. And, they bring in all their stars and have them do stage presentations. It's basically an E3 press conference, but about TV shows to advertisers.
And why don't you go to that?
It's not open to the public. But I did go to that indirectly because what they did for 30 Rock, which is so weird, is they married the idea of, well, let's do a reunion of 30 Rock, which is a show about NBC and running NBC, with an actual upfront presentation about what's coming to NBC. So they announced it as this weird hybrid, and then they advertised it as a full-on 30 Rock, a one-time special reunion show. So when you watch it, it's like 2/3 30 Rock, or maybe half 30 Rock, half ad for Peacock, ad for NBC News, ad for NBC Sports, ad for the new slate of shows on their sister networks like E! And Bravo, and then, at the end, here's the new shows coming to NBC this fall. And it's all integrated into the story, which made it very heavy-handed and very weird. But also, I don't know, are you in on is it a joke anymore if you're so in on the joke of making fun of your network and being about your network that you then use the thing making fun of you to actually be about your network? It seems like it goes one step too far almost. So, the quality of the actual content of the 30 Rock special, I'd say, was not the best it could be. The 30 Rock bits were good. The advertising bits were not so good, and there were a lot of those. They said Peacock 21 times in 1 hour. I counted. That's a lot of Peacock. But the reason I bring it up is the way they put that together was so much different that, like, if you watch from the start of the coronavirus lockdowns and quarantine through now, like the way things are shot, it's so interesting how it evolved, and it's going to be across like every format, like sports and live events and reality shows and whatnot, that to, you know, the point, like everything's so different now. We talk kids about, there's going to be this weird like chapter of like a year of television, maybe 2 years of television, that just like, you can't syndicate that, you can't rerun it, it's going to be too weird, it's just going to feel so like haphazard. Because like if you look at like, I mean, I guess the very first reunion you can look at is what Community did on YouTube, right? And it's like basically a bunch of people just got on Zoom and read a script. And it had like a looseness that was kind of fun. It's cool to see the cast together again. And then they went one step further and they started doing TV shows through Zoom and similar video chat platforms, but knowing they're on Zoom and similar chat platforms. So like Parks and Rec, they did it really well, where they keep calling around a video call thing to try and like get in touch, and you know, they make it seem like they're playing for a show and they do an interview like it's a show, and it made sense in the format. Mythic Quest, which we mentioned a minute ago, they did it too, and apparently it's well received. But then what 30 Rock did is they actually tried to shoot a real episode, but everyone was isolated. So they had family members doing multiple camera angles. There were bits where they were on their phones FaceTiming, but they were not just showing it through FaceTime. They had a shot of Tina Fey as Liz Lemon talking into her phone from a third person perspective. Like someone was filming her filming the phone. And then they did bits where like Kenneth, Jack McBrayer, he heads NBC, and he's like in a mansion in LA, and then he played his own secretary, which had like a weird, like they had a weird love relationship thing going on, like she really likes him or whatever. So he's like playing two characters, but they're shooting it from multiple angles. So it was like, in terms of like the progress of like quarantine content, it actually felt very well shot and almost real, like a real show. But if you put that against 30 Rock when they syndicated on, you know, it's available on Peacock or Netflix in like 10 years, it's going to stick out so much and be so weird. Like, it's just going to be like this era is going to look so weird in retrospect. But and it's interesting because like I think like some things that are coming out of it are kind of cool. Like, I don't know, have you guys been following how sports are coming back? They're doing it in such different ways, like each league.
I saw sports that were coming back, but I haven't seen how.
So baseball's back, and for the most part, it's kind of a hodgepodge of crowd noises, and the Dodgers at least have cardboard cutouts of famous LA people in the stands. They actually put like 8 rows of cardboard cutouts behind, you know, where the camera would see them, so it looks like there's a crowd. Then
but I think you could also pay $150 to get your own cardboard.
Oh, you can actually pay? I didn't know that.
Oh,
that's
so.
really cool. That's actually really cool.
$150. Yeah,
that's
I
cool.
think they send it to you at the end of the season.
That's actually super cool. So they're doing that. Then Fox, for I think the NFL, they're using Unreal Engine to build a crowd. They're going to have a virtual crowd of rendered people. They'll cheer, they'll boo, they'll make the wave, they'll do the wave. What'd you say, why?
Like, why are they putting so much effort into making it look like a crowd is there?
Because I think it's very weird. I think they think it's very weird when you have a sport going on and it's dead silent. Because half of the thing about sports is the energy in it, right? Like, if you're cheering for your team, it's like, yeah, look at him go, look at him go. If it's just one guy by himself running down a field and just crickets, it kind of loses that energy. So they're kind of trying to figure out a way.
That just tells me that, then that just means people don't really care that much about sports.
They care about sports.
They just care about the spectacle of it, but not the sport itself.
No, well, I think it all. No, it factors in, because when you're a fan of, I'm not even a sports person, I get, but when you're a fan of like
if
a
I
team,
love the sport, why would I care if there's like a crowd cheering? I just want
because
to
no, I'm sure people would still watch them, like they absolutely still would watch them, but it would just feel weird. Yeah.
You know what it'd feel like, Angel? You know those bits of like Big Bang Theory where people take out the laugh track and put it on YouTube, and it's just all those awkward pauses and stuff? It'd be like that, but your favorite sport.
Yeah, but that's because those shows are designed with the laugh track in mind, though.
But you have
like they pause for applause.
That show actually sucks too, so it's not like sports.
No, but my point is like with sports, like it's there's them running down the field with the ball, but there's also all the like energy that comes with that and around that, and like you can't just, you know, it's really hard to get excited about something if it's dead quiet. Because, like, you know, there's people at home that, like, throw their bowl of popcorn in the air when they score.
I guess because I can't relate. Like, I guess I just find it weird.
But I think the coolest one, and this is one that actually I think makes the most sense but does the most work, is what the NBA is doing. I was just reading about this yesterday. They are, first of all, they're doing that weird bubble city where, like, all the teams are going to play in Walt Disney World, which sounds like a COVID petri dish waiting to happen. But regardless, they are erecting 17-foot LED screens around the arenas. And they're going to let fans virtually attend. So the players will see the fans. The players will feed off the energy of that noise. They're going to mics set up so the fans can be picked up in the arena and broadcast through the arena so the players can definitely hear them. They're going to mics set up so they can put the squeaky shoes and stuff on the feed.
See, that makes more sense to me.
And
I can see why that would be.
Yeah, and then the players can feed off the energy.
Do?
Yeah, and that just seems like could you imagine, it's like ESPN Classic in 30 years and you got the Lakers in 2012, or I don't even know who wins what year. Let's just pretend I know. Or the who's another team that does well in another year where they did well. And then it's just now we're flashing back to 2020 and it's just walls of screens of people in an empty arena. It's just, these things are going to age so strangely. It's not going to, I know I was saying the internet's so different for, kids now versus how we used to watch TV, but, just imagine the stories of, let me show you this one crazy year where there were 300 people and hashtags written all over the arena. And then there's an app, you could press a button and it cheers in the arena and they can hear the cheering. That's another thing they're doing. There'll be an app. So you can actually hammer a button to make the cheering louder in the arena for the players while remote. It's super weird to think about. And I know I'm going on a crazy tangent, but it's just I've been thinking about this the last couple of weeks. Just watching how all the different industries have evolved, even Comic-Con. Even if you look at how expos have kind of tried to fill the void, I'd say Comic-Con did a pretty decent job this year. It's not the same.
Felt busy.
What? Yeah, it felt busy.
Felt
yeah, because they did panels through YouTube and they had 100 plus of them. They had all their exhibitors set up online sales. Granted, they had to do it themselves on their own sites, but nonetheless, they had a rolling index. They had a show floor you could click around. They had off-website events, I guess you could say, where there are swag giveaways. I have a Lego comic book and a SpongeBob patch randomly coming to my house because they're just giving them away. And I'm well, Comic-Con. But they managed to capture a good chunk of it. Obviously not all of it. The being there in person is a whole but different, much, much, much better vibe. But it did feel like it was an event, which, if you asked me 2 months ago how would they have done that, I don't know. It didn't seem like it would be possible, but they managed to do it. So it's a weird time we're in, but it's definitely going to leave a legacy of oddities.
Yeah,
that was my rant. That was it. Once you were comparing how different it is for what we're gonna tell our kids, that made me be oh yeah, that's only the tip of the iceberg.
Very, very tip.
You were talking about the 30 Rock reunion being a lot of Peacock. Did you actually check out Peacock?
I have not yet checked out Peacock. I do like that it's ad free in part. I mean, not ad free, free with ads. The opposite of ad free in part. I think that's smart. But have you actually used it?
Hulu is paid with ads. How does that work?
Well, Peacock is what Hulu was 5 years ago, if you think about it.
Yeah, Hulu used to have ads, and you could watch stuff for free.
And they found that overall, it wasn't worthwhile to try and convert people from free to paid. Either they'd pay or they'd just stick with free, because the idea was the free would be the lure, the carrot on the stick to get them to pay. And Peacock, I think, is trying the same thing because they're all the syndicated stuff. So the old stuff seems to be available free, and then the original content seems to be paid, if I understand it correctly, the dichotomy of it.
Yeah, then if you want it ad-free, both those options ad-free, you can pay a little bit extra for that.
Right. Have you been using it?
I have been using it on my PC, and I do use ad blockers. Sorry about that. But I used it to watch a couple of Parks and Recreation episodes and the new Psych movie, Psych 2, Lassie Comes Home.
How is that?
So, it was. I thought it was funny. I don't know if are you a Psych fan?
I never actually finished the series, but I watched the first 4 or 5 years, basically up until I went to college. I was pretty dedicated to it for a long time. Yeah.
Right. The first Psych movie I think is hilarious. I think this one was funny. I'll just leave it at that.
That's fair.
Yeah.
But yeah, I need to finish that up. I need to watch the movies, and I think the last season still. They did a thing at UCSB where they actually showed up and the cast was there. We won it. The campus won it. It's pretty cool. They had pineapples, squishy pineapples.
Okay, well, it makes sense since the show takes place in Santa Barbara.
Of course, yeah.
Right. Speaking of movies, Angel, our last topic at hand goes to you.
Yeah, so I finally got around to watching John Wick, or I guess just the first one. I haven't seen part 2 or part 3, and is there a part 4 coming out?
There is a part 4.
There is, and it comes out the same time as The Matrix 4, same day, which is weird because he stars in both, Keanu.
Huh.
How does that work? Why would they split the audience? I don't. Maybe it'll get delayed with COVID, but yeah.
Well, I think, intentionally or not, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I knew it was going to be over the top going in, but I feel like if I didn't, I probably would have disliked it a little bit. Mainly because the movie's so over the top, it takes it so super seriously, which obviously I guess it seems like it's intentional. I don't know. The movie is just it's pretty funny. Outside of it, like not really having that many jokes, it's just because it's just kind of awkward. Like a lot of things just feel awkward in that film. I mean, essentially, John Wick is put up on this really high pedestal before we even really see him do anything. That he's like the world's best assassin or something, or I guess contract killer. And just the way like everyone talks about him, or anytime they say his name, like it just
fear in people.
It did, but it was just hilarious. Like every single time, like it just kind of like just made us laugh just because of how they delivered it. It was like, who'd you mess with? John Wick. I don't know.
Yeah,
but,
one of my favorite parts of that is like the crime boss talks to a mechanic, and the mechanic goes, the crime boss over the phone, he's like, I heard that you hit my dog, and the mechanic goes, yes, I did.
My son.
And why would you wait? What did I say?
His dog.
Oh no, my bad. Yeah, he's like, I heard that you like punched my son, and he's like, why would you do that? And he said, well, sir, he stole John Wick's car, and then the crime boss just goes, oh, and he hangs up the phone because he's like, all right, well, we're screwed.
This very much sounds like a movie made by a guy that used to just only care about stunts, which I think is quite literally what it is.
And this is all before like we see him do anything, so like it follows that classic like filmmaking trope of tell don't show. Mm-hmm. But then they definitely do a lot of show later. But like that was all pretty honestly, like this movie, I mean, for whether intentional or not, like it just gave me kind of like an Axe Cop kind of vibe. I don't know if any of you guys have seen that show, but it kind of felt like the plot was written by like a 10-year-old of like their ideal like badass, and it's just like, oh, and then he does this, and then he takes out all these people. Like it's just so over the top and like action. It's just like pure, like I guess unadulterated is not the word I want to use, but pure adrenaline, pure like non-stop action. That's just it's cool. It's like it's like a perfect popcorn flick. Like turn your brain off and just watch it. But yeah, I mean, I guess outside of that, like because of that, like I very much enjoyed it. But every once in a while, where I did decide to like, think about the movie, it always like made me ask these questions. Like they wanted to kill John Wick, but there were some parts where the bad guys have him knocked out, I should add, and they just don't kill him for some reason. Obviously because the plot needs them to not be dead. Yeah. But like the guy that literally wants him dead has him knocked out for a while, waits for him to wake up, and then he just kind of talks to him, and then he just kind of leaves the room, and obviously he gets away and escapes. But it's like the movie could have ended like 2 other points right there. And then there's also the whole like he's meant to be this like badass that can like do no wrong, and like it's like killed like a bunch of men with a pencil, something they say but they don't show you, which I want to say they do in another movie.
Yes, it was The Dark Knight, and it was the Joker.
Oh no, I just feel like I've.
Oh, you meant in the John Wick? I thought you meant in general.
Yeah, no. In John Wick 2 or 3, like I feel like I've seen posts on the internet or something that implies that he actually does eventually fight with just a pencil. But I could
do you want me to tell you?
Yeah.
I've never seen the trilogy before you guys start spoiling everything.
Oh,
I still want to see it at some point.
Now I remember if there is or not. Okay, I'm not gonna say it.
I mean, you could say if he does it at one point, just don't go into detail.
Yes, I believe in the second movie he does use a pencil to kill someone.
Does he do it like the Joker in The Dark Knight?
Kind of. More action-y way, if I had to guess, instead of a more showman-y kind of way.
Yeah.
That one just kind of came out of nowhere. That was kind of like, whoa.
In Dark Knight? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. That was just the Joker being the Joker.
But yeah, like, throughout this movie, he's friends with the Green Goblin, and...
I'm sorry, what? What? Do you mean...
Yeah, he's friends with Norman Osborn.
Like the character, or like the actor?
Yeah, like the character, the Green Goblin.
Okay.
It's a cross universe thing.
I see. Okay. MCU
Yeah, they both take place
expanded.
in New York.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the Green Goblin, who goes by Marcus in this universe for some reason, and never puts a suit on, forgot his name. Anyway, I mean not the actor's name.
Yeah, I know what you meant.
Yeah.
So did
Willem
I.
Dafoe.
William Dafoe.
William Dafoe.
Yeah, so Willem Dafoe, like his name is Marcus, and he's like an old friend of John Wick's, is implied, and there are like I think twice or three times in that film where like John Wick is sleeping, and he's straight up about to get assassinated, but Marcus like saves him by alerting him that there's an assassin in his room by like shooting a sniper, just like pretty much off of his head, or just away from his head enough to not kill him, but just to alert him, just so he doesn't get killed. And then later on, he pretty much does the same thing where he's pretty much about to die, but then he snipes someone in the head from far away, and
He's very much the
saves
Deus Ex Machina of the movie.
yeah. So it kind of made me wonder, like, would John Wick have not have been this big legend if it wasn't for this Marcus? It's like this Marcus. It almost made John
Well, I
Wick kind of
believe he
seem
was
like a
his
false
mentor.
idol. I don't know.
I believe he was his mentor.
Yeah, it sounds like he taught him everything he knew, but it also seems like how many times has he been saving him? But I don't know. It was just like a minor thing, but it's like, well, I guess John Wick isn't as like I guess invincible as we thought he was, which I guess could have also been the point. But you know, they also literally refer to him as the boogeyman in a lot of instances, so he is
The
meant to
Baba
be
Yaga.
this like, yeah, like this omnipotent, like, oh, you do not want to cross paths with him. But he's also very mortal, but he is extremely deadly, except when he's not. Like,
Right.
he's hard to kill, except when we have a chance to kill him, we just won't. So, yeah.
I said it before, I'll say again, this does very much sound like a movie a stunt coordinator made, which makes sense because I think it was. Right? Isn't it the stunt coordinator from The Matrix who directed this? Is that
Yeah,
how
I
this
believe
came to
so.
be?
Maybe.
So
I mean-
that's probably why it is how it is.
I mean, a lot of fast-paced action, a lot of cuts. I mean, it's very Hollywood. It's very, and it's cool. I mean, I've grown to become a fan of Keanu Reeves, so like
We all
I did
have.
I feel like everybody has,
I've,
yeah.
I've been enjoying his roles in this, but even then, I feel like this was maybe one of his more boring characters. I feel like he was more interesting in the ones where he, I don't know, I guess had more of a personality instead of just guy that shoots stuff.
How about
But,
in Bill and Ted? Because he's pretty flat by design
Well-
in Bill and Ted.
Well, I haven't seen that movie. I've
okay.
only seen a handful of Keanu movies at this point. That's why I'm just like starting to become a fan.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen Point Break, and I guess
Matrix?
I guess the first Matrix.
How about
Most.
Speed, the original Speed?
Oh yeah, and I saw Speed. But
Actually, he's pretty flat in a lot of his stuff.
yeah.
Even in Speed, he's just kind of the guy that's there.
It honestly, like, it's just like when he's like trying to say his lines, and I don't know if it's supposed to be intentionally funny or not, but when he like his weird way of pronouncing things just makes it sound hilarious. That I guess makes him like kind of endearing sometimes, but yeah, I don't know. But I thought it was kind of interesting that right after we saw that movie, that was our movie for last week. We just wanted something a lot lighter, like something not as intense, because this was like, I mean, it was an action movie with a popcorn. It was unintentionally funny, but it was still very much like drama, tears, like, oh, like there's a funeral, and of course it's in the rain, like, you know, everything is very dark, very moody, and we wanted the opposite of that. And we ended up watching.
Before we move on to your other movie, it's funny how you say that this movie, that John Wick, is very over the top, because after watching the second movie and the third movie, this one is so grounded compared to those two.
Oh man,
You know
I can
what?
only imagine.
You know, honestly, the way
Which
I
I
want
have-
to watch them when the time comes is all in one weekend. I just need it to ramp up so fast, so hard. Like, I feel like it's the only way I watch them, right? Like, you gotta just go all in.
I
And
mean,
just
I
let
really
it
hope.
reach crazy heights.
I mean, I have heard that to some extent, and I know it's not going to happen. But like at the end of the first movie, he walks away with like a new dog, and I hope that's like a scene where he's like surrounded by a bunch of bad guys, and him and his dog like give each other a look, and then they team up and like beat up everybody at the same time. But I'm sure maybe that doesn't happen. Maybe in a dream. But I definitely am curious to see like where this goes, because it does feel like the Fast and the Furious of running guns,
Yeah.
and I guess some martial arts. But yeah, and I've heard they I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Wait, have you seen all three, Kevin?
Yeah, I've seen all three.
I mean, would you say like it's like one of those like they get worse every time, or because I've heard that their quality either like they're all still considered good movies, like and they're not like the third one is where it becomes trash. I've heard they're all worth watching.
That they're not.
No, I've heard that they're all worth watching.
Oh,
or that
yeah.
right? Which is good to hear.
The third one is a little bit long. It's definitely a bit on the longer side. But the John Wick, I hate that I'm about to say this, but the John Wick universe has some crazy lore attached to it. Especially the second movie builds up this crazy universe.
The JWCU.
The what? The JWCU?
The JWCU.
John
right?
Wick
Yeah, Cinematic Universe, yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does, because apparently there is going to be a TV show.
Wait, what?
Huh. With Keanu?
I doubt that.
No, it's going to be based around the chain of hotels, the Continental. I think that's what it's called. It's called the Continental.
Let me guess. So it's going to be on TNT alongside Snowpiercer, because they just love turning movies into shows. Or USA, one of the two.
Maybe. But yeah.
USA did it with The Purge a few years ago as well, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, you're right about that.
Yeah.
Damn. Well, I guess the other movie, kind of like a reset or just like a palate cleanser of just over-the-top drama, we ended up watching Rush Hour. Surprisingly, I had never seen the first Rush Hour. I had only seen part 2 ad nauseum, like growing up. Like we had the DVD and we would watch it almost on loop sometimes. We just watched it so many times because we loved it. But I somehow never got around to watching the first one, and damn, I mean, I really liked it. I mean, honestly, because maybe it was because after just watching John Wick, but it really like brings to the forefront just how different like a lot of like Jackie Chan movies are in general versus just a lot of like mainstream action films. And I mean, first, like, it's just like the action itself. Like, I mean, obviously Rush Hour was more of a comedy, which is something that we were very much looking forward to. And it was still very funny. Like, I felt it still held up, even if a lot of the jokes are very of the times. It's a surprisingly very, like, racy movie. Like, there's just a lot of, like, just racist offhand jokes that, I mean...
It's definitely of the time.
Yeah, as of the time as it is, it definitely does feel like, yeah, that does kind of sound like people, the way people talk like that back then, which kind of makes you go, like, there was even, like, some very, like, appropriately timed, like, cop jokes that were just like, oh, wow, it's like they were literally commenting on that today. But yeah, like, just, like, the way, like, Jackie fights versus the way, like, John Wick goes through a room, like, it's, like, night and day. Like, I mean, I just love that anytime, like, Jackie Chan is fighting someone, like, everything is very... I mean, you know, he doesn't really use guns, and when he does use a gun, it's usually to disarm someone, and as he's fighting them, he's literally taking the gun apart and, like, throwing it to the side. It's, like, it's, like, almost, like, slapsticky, but very grounded action, which I just really like, and it's always very comical. I mean, you do see him get hurt a lot, but, I don't know. Also, like, I didn't realize most, if not all of the movie was Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan not getting along. But,
oh, yeah.
I mean,
it was like forced pairing in the premise.
Yeah, I mean, like, nowadays, like, it's like a very cliche, like, movie, but, you know, it's like your typical, like, buddy cop scenario. Neither of them want to work with each other. They have, like, opposite goals, and by the end, they're best friends. And,
like,
I mean, obviously, when I saw part 2, they were already, like, best buds. But, yeah, just, like, it's funny I said, like, that the action was, like, night and day, because literally, like, every time you see Jackie fight, you're able to see every single little thing he does, and it like almost never cuts away during any of his action. But then when you're seeing John Wick fight, it's like super up close. There's a lot of cuts. Sometimes it's like in the dark, or it's raining and in the dark, kind of like in like Godzilla. So, or it just kind of reminds me of like when I was watching like some combat scenes in like The Dark Knight. Just like a lot of, I don't know, like it just makes the action, I don't know, I guess that just feels blockbustery, but I feel like I can't really tell what's going on sometimes.
It's also of its era in a way, because like, not to cut you off, I just gonna say like Rush Hour was like, that was an era where movies just showed what happened, Well, like blockbuster movies, to your point later on, Dark Knight, and shaky cam became a thing, and it was this idea of like you need to represent the chaos by making it like you don't know what's going on in the fight because it's so quick and moving so fast, just like they don't know. Like it's just very different decades of film.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's because I grew up with being able to see what's going on, but I feel like I definitely still much prefer I very much enjoyed myself during the action scenes of Rush Hour much more than during the action scenes of John Wick. Because even though they were very over the top and very adrenaline and very high action, most of them are just gunfights. And personally, I think gunfights are extremely boring to watch. Especially in movies. I guess it's only in movies or TV shows. Because I don't know, it's nothing happens until someone just gets shot, and it just kind of feels all right. It's you're in a plot standstill until the bullet makes contact. And I guess that even goes for some combat scenes, but at least in Rush Hour or some other Jackie Chan films that I've seen, it's you don't really the action itself or the fights themselves are choreographed in a way that it's almost you're hearing a bunch of jokes back to back. There's setups and punchlines, and
literally
actually, and
sorry.
Oh yeah, and usually I don't want to miss anything that's happening, because then it's I miss a funny moment, or I miss a really cool trick that he did, or because he's always using his environment and you want to see how he got from that point to the other point. Mm-hmm. But I feel most action movies nowadays it doesn't really matter that you could literally leave as soon as a gunfight starts and then come back and just know oh, he won, but it doesn't really matter how, or it's just not as interesting. But I don't know, that could also be just me. I mean, there were some fights or some moments in John Wick that I thought were pretty cool. But I felt for the most part it was still very, I don't know, maybe I've just seen too many of too many gunfights at this point, or they're just, I don't know, it just feels all right, how long is this gonna go? All right, let's get it going. And then I guess, I don't know, whenever he was doing more hand-to-hand combat, that was more interesting, but most of John Wick is just him running with a gun and shooting.
One movie you may want to look into that kind of is a hybrid, but doesn't, if I remember correctly, does not have as much shaky cam and shows more actual hand-to-hand combat, while also having some modern style and gunplay. Atomic Blonde. I seem to remember that walking the line between the two pretty well.
I think also the director of John Wick
produced it, right, or something?
No, directed.
Oh, did he?
I think so.
Oh, so is this him trying more hand-to-hand combat instead of just gunplay, basically? Because I seem to remember... Now, granted, I should set the scene here. I saw Atomic Blonde at Comic-Con one year, and it was one of our friends, Gilbert, and I that went, and they had a lot... So the movie set in Russia heavily, and there was a good amount of free Svedka vodka floating around. So I might have a slightly skewed view of the movie, but from what I remember, I do remember it being a lot more you can actually make out the fight scenes a lot better, and there's a lot more actual it was like a fist-filled ballet almost. There's a lot more choreography involved and not just gunplay. So that might be something that kind of is what you're looking for, Angel, is an in-between maybe.
Maybe, yeah, because I mean, it's it makes John Wick look badass. He goes into a room and he headshots a bunch of people and dodges a bunch of bullets and then kills some more people almost instantly. But I found it way more entertaining where a quick example was towards the end of Rush Hour, there's a scene where Jackie Chan is fighting off two dudes pretty much with a giant urn that it has fallen down, but he doesn't want it to break because it's part of Chinese culture. Mm-hmm. And he's punching them away on his left and right, just doing crazy quick push-ups to get off the ground, pushing the urn out of the way just fast enough to hit the guys away from him, and then catching the urn again so it doesn't break, and then kind of doing that crazy balancing act until he finally gets it balanced up, and then as he's walking away, the urn gets fired at and just breaks. Mm-hmm. But still, it's just kind of stuff like that where one felt just more entertaining, and one is just also because he does his own stunts, and a lot of these things that he does are just impressive knowing that he did them. But I guess watching a movie is never as impressive just seeing someone, just
I think
getting a bunch of headshots. I do know that he did have a lot of training. I do know, I've seen the videos of him actually going to a shooting range and hitting all those marks. So I know he put a lot of work into that. And I mean, it is cool. I still I can appreciate that, but I feel it doesn't translate to something that I find as impressive in film as I would seeing physical feats. what Jackie Chan would do, or some things that I know Keanu also did, like where people they're like running and vaulting over things. Like I feel that's more present than just firing the gun. I don't know. I think I've just been desensitized, but I feel like just gunplay, unless it's done in a very creative and new way, then it's just bam, bam, bam until someone gets shot. I don't know.
Also,
maybe need more, maybe more ricocheting bullets. But even then, I don't know. I don't know what they can do to get me interested in that. Duels are like the only time that I feel like it's ever interesting, just because it's decided on that one first kill, and this is more of like, oh my god, who's gonna do it first? That's like the most mystery you get. I feel like plot armor sometimes evades that, but I don't know. That's
also,
just...
small disclaimer to give you an idea of how off base I may be about Atomic Blonde. From what I remember, I got the vodka wrong. It's Stoli, not Svedka, which makes sense because Stoli is a higher quality one. But yeah, so maybe don't trust me on that because I already screwed up the vodka part of it. So and that was why I was drinking all night. So just saying, it might be a little off base.
So I don't know where I guess you guys stand in those kind of movies, but yeah, I think
I am often.
preference.
I am often, for better or worse, big on style. I wouldn't say style over substance, but if something like has a cool style to it and has, I think it goes back to, I've said this on the show before, like it goes back to my love of like spectacle and everything. Like I think if it has a cool style, I would take that over like just watching some people, like watching Jackie Chan do his thing, which is impressive in its own right. But I, generally speaking, I don't want to say I'm more style than substance because that makes me sound shallow, but yeah, I kind of am. I think. What about you, Kevin?
Yeah, so
I'm sorry, what?
Are you more like
style? What about me? Yeah, I'm very much style over
okay,
substance.
Yeah. So both of us can be shallow together. That's cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what were we gonna say, Angel? Before I ask Kevin.
Oh no, that's pretty much it. So I guess like if, yeah, I mean again, and John Wick definitely does have a lot of style. Like there are a lot of the action scenes where you can't see what's going on, but still has cool music and lighting throughout all of it that makes it look like I'm watching like a cool music video. But I mean, I just find that boring. I
mean, to your point about cool music video, I love Tron Legacy, and that thing had no substance to talk about whatsoever. But it was an awesome 2-hour music video. I'm very excited they're supposedly doing a third one now. But it doesn't really have a meat on the bone. Or even like if you tie it into, you know, our regular podcast a week ago, if you guys haven't heard it, I gave Impressions of Liberated, a very stylistic game that is full of a bunch of tropes of dystopian future. So substance wise, maybe not there, but style wise, it's there in spades, and I love it for that. So like, yeah, definitely. The more I think about it, the more I'm coming to grips with me being style over substance.
Makes sense. Explains a lot.
It does, right? Yeah, I'm just a shallow, boring person. But at least for like action. At least for action.
I mean, don't get me wrong, like style is still cool, but one day maybe I'll find my good mix of style and substance.
Or just
although
debatably,
I would say like, I mean, I guess I enjoy like, I would consider, I guess, some of the things that Jackie Chan does having its own kind of style, but that's also, I mean, but I know what you mean when you say style, though.
Like a slickness.
It's more of a visual presentation, more so than...
If you haven't seen The Raid, that's another one. Maybe a better example than Atomic Blonde. The Raid, they did 2 of them, I think. But the first one, I haven't seen the second, but the first one is a lot of like kind of hand... Like, there's gunplay, there's a lot of hand-to-hand, it's a lot of like intense fight scenes. But it's done in kind of a more modern bent without it being like, you still see what's going on. It's basically, it's the same plot as Dread. Like literally.
Yeah, Kevin mentioning Dread, I actually did enjoy that movie. I think that one was one where like, I don't know what it was about the gunplay or like what they did, but I guess the guns there were way more powerful and they were switching between a lot of different types of bullets that don't really exist in real life. I felt that made it way more interesting. But yeah, that one, I really enjoyed that movie.
Yeah, no, but both, they're literally like the same exact movie, just one's in the future and one's modern times.
And yeah, and I mean, I'm not saying like,
the Raid
and I hope it
is like leagues better than the Raid 1, though.
Is it? I'm gonna have to check it out. I saw the Raid 1. I never would have ended up seeing. It wasn't even on my radar. But Mike Shinoda of Linkin Park did the soundtrack.
I knew that's why you were gonna watch the movie.
No. It wasn't just because he did the soundtrack. He did a screening where he did a Q&A about the soundtrack. So I went to that through Linkin Park's fan club.
It's still Linkin Park related.
That's still Linkin Park.
No, I know, but that's how I ended up going to see it, but I was really happy I saw it afterwards. I
you know what?
I actually have a signed copy of the soundtrack.
Whatever it takes to get people to watch it, that's great.
Yeah. But,
in general, I mean, because
because
I know like just kind of bringing back that one anime I talked about a while ago, Your Lie in April.
Mm-hmm.
That got me into listening to a lot of like Chopin and some Beethoven stuff and like some other classical stuff, but in particular some ballads that I just really, really love. And sometimes I'll go to YouTube and I'll watch like the concert pianist play those versions, not like the anime version. I mean, they're just like musical pieces that existed for years. And when I go to the comments, I'll see like a lot of people, half of them will be like, oh man, like I only discovered this because of Your Lie in April, which is like more than half of them. And then there's like another third that are like, oh, I hate that people are only here because an anime showed it to them. But then there's other people that are more like, well, isn't it great that an anime of all things like got them to appreciate this kind of music and got them exploring more of it? So,
well, yeah, it's one of those things that, like, if you like something and the thing you like...
Yeah, it shouldn't matter how you get there.
Yeah, like, if you like something and you trust the opinion and taste of something you like, be it, you know, like Mike Shinoda doing soundtrack to Get Me Into the Raid, or, like, another kind of other example would be, like, Kanye working with Takashi Murakami, the artist, and now I have, like... And I got really into his stuff, and I actually just got a little Murakami flower plush thing that's sitting right next to me the other day. Like, all that, like, I wouldn't have cared about Murakami if it wasn't Kanye that had him do the cover for Graduation in, like, 2006, 7. So, you know, it's the things you like that expose you to other things you like often. It's either your friends or it's the, like, sort of like tastemakers, if you will, that you are already into that then lead you to other things. Like, even in comments where it's like, oh, this commercial brought me here. You know, like, I heard this song in an Xbox sizzle reel. It's just like, well, that's cool. Like, I never would have discovered that song if it wasn't for the Xbox sizzle reel I happened to have in the background while working or whatever it may be, you know. So I would say finding it through things you already enjoy is actually, even if it is, oh, haha, Linkin Park.
That's literally Jason, like...
But I mean, how else do you expand your
Jason
horizon?
Incarnate.
Yeah, it's like, how else do you expand your horizon?
I mean, the only reason he even watches anything animated is because there's usually some actor that he's a fan of involved. Otherwise, he wouldn't give two turds about animation.
Nope, you are now exaggerating. There's, actually,
Only a little bit.
Oh, man, are you? BoJack was Will Arnett. Rick and Morty was Dan Harmon. Oh my god, I'm having an epiphany.
Yes. The only reason you watch Spider was because your freaking Jump Street people.
Yeah. Not the Jump Street guys. They do a bunch of stuff. They do Lego Movie. They do Jump Street. They do Lance Man on Earth. Yeah. No, I would have seen Spider-Verse anyway. It looked visually very cool, but it definitely turned me on to it when the project was first announced before they had any images. Yeah,
I would say like 90.
It was gonna be good.
I would say 99% of the time it's because of that. The other time is because I'll tell you to check something out.
Yeah, well, and that's what I'm saying. It's either like things you like that lead you to other things, or people you know whose taste you trust that lead you to other things. Like,
which you know, and yeah, and
clearly how Discovery
some people
works.
would be upset. Like in my case, I'd probably be like, man, I wish one day Jason would want to watch an animated film just because like he just finds the plot itself, not because of any other actor. But I mean,
as long as you watch it, that's still embellishing cool. Now. There's for sure stuff I've watched just because it looked interesting.
No, the only ones I can think of are just like. Yeah, but Disney's kind of in a league of its own, though. But yeah, I would say like those are like the only ones I could think of that you straight up watch because you just like the previous films and you just want to check out what they do.
But I mean,
but I meant like in general. But yeah,
I'm sure there's some.
No, I know. There has to be, but it's hard to think of.
Well, actually, a good example, Ex Machina. I heard good things about. Knew nothing about the guy, Alex Garland. Then Annihilation came out, and I saw that, and I really liked that. And then knowing his past work is what got me to watch Devs on FX. Which I feel like will work better as a movie, but had some really interesting ideas and concepts. And Nick Offerman was in it, and that was cool. But it wasn't Nick Offerman that got me to watch it, even though I love Parks. It was randomly seeing Ex Machina based on word of mouth, and then seeing Annihilation based on liking Ex Machina that then led me to Devs. So, like, you start somewhere with everything, really.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You do.
Yeah. Or like Mr. Robot was just, there's one that was just a premise with no one, I don't care about Christian Slayer. I didn't know who Sam Esmail was. Rami Malek wasn't anyone yet. But, like, the premise seemed cool. So, you know, there are still bursts of it every so often. But, yeah, it's like self-referrals, almost, for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, all right.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. I think that'll do it for this episode of Quarantine Chronicles, episode 6, like I said, at the top of the show. Go ahead and follow us on Twitter. We are Random Nintendo. Go ahead and follow us on your favorite podcasting app. Spotify, Stitcher. I'm forgetting them. Jason.
Apple, Google, Pandora. Do you want to say YouTube or should I say YouTube?
No, you can say YouTube.
Our YouTube is Random Nintendo.com.
Okay, why is it Random Nintendo.com?
Because Random Nintendo was apparently taken by some dude who posted like one video of Yoshi dancing one time or something.
Is there no way to like
commandeer it? We're not really big enough to do that. I could try, but I mean, I could try. I know you can do
All right,
that
all right.
if it's a
that's your
dead account.
project.
Yeah, okay.
Have the person sell it to you.
That's your project, yeah. You can follow us individually on our Twitter accounts. I am KVN Gomie. Jason is JSR7. Angel is at WEIRO_O, right?
Yep.
I've always got to make a mental note of that. I totally forgot at the top of the episode to say that you can what's the word? The topics. I'm sorry. It's the time. It's so hot in my room. I turned off the AC, and now I'm just in a puddle of my own filth.
We have been through that in the pre Kevin days of the podcast. There were times that we recorded at Angels. I went back to take a shower at my house, which is a 20-mile drive, and then came straight back because we had other plans, but I just could not. It was just too hot. So I feel you. I feel you.
I need to take a shower after this. And I think with that, Jason, go ahead and lead us out.
Oh, I have it. Watch Mildred and Schwartz. It'll help our society. It'll help me. It'll help you. And I just really want more of them.